Hey, break it down. What? Yeah, what? Do 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 do. Okay. How you guys doing today? Had a pretty chill day. Did some voice work today. Recorded some stuff. Tomorrow, back to Capital. Right, back to the capitalist grind. Just a heads up to people to my regulars. Good evening to you, Famita. Hey, Mocked, how you doing? Just a heads up to my regulars. Monday's stream might start late. I'm streaming on your stream. So wait, you're streaming your stream, and then you're streaming me while you're streaming my stream. It's like Inception. It's Inception. Oh wow, you just exposed a Nazi for being a Nazi? That feels good. Exposing Nazis. It's the first step to getting rid of Nazis, right? Speaking of Nazis, wait, let me finish that previous thought. Monday stream is going to start late. I picked up an extra shift on Monday, so I'm going to have to start the stream a little bit late on Monday. That's how it's going to be. So probably aim for 7 as opposed to 6. So Monday stream is going to just be a bit late. Speaking of Nazis, right? Great video here. I put it in the Discord. This is from the Gray Zone, Texas Bentley and Fergie Chambers report from the Donbass front lines. I only got about halfway through it before I had to start streaming, but real good listen. Really informative about what's going on in Donbass. Really informative about this fellow here, Fergie Chambers, has really convinced me that the Nazi issue in Ukraine is a lot more ubiquitous than I think we are, even us Western leftists are aware. That when we're seeing things like Zelensky banning left-wing parties while not banning Nazi parties, that should be very, very, like, that is happening for the reasons why you think it is. Like, I'm no longer satisfied with the explanation, like, oh, well, it's just a small group, oh, it's just, like, no. That small group is the group that's willing to be overt about it, and I mean small group, we're talking about thousands of people, but they're well supported by their society, right? That's really what it comes down to, is that these, like, to be a conservative in Ukraine is to just accept the Nazis. So really, like, what's the difference? Like, what's the difference between, like, a conservative and a Nazi if you look at the people who are the Nazis and go, oh, well, that's fine, right? It's like that classic, like, if there's 10 people sitting at a table and a known Nazi joins them without comment, there are 11 Nazis sitting at a table. Like, it's, I think it's actually a lot more serious than we think. And really, I think how this is unfolding in Ukraine is that the Russians already have control of the Donbass region for the most part. Of course, there's ongoing fighting. Of course, there's, like, a front line, right, which the United States is doing everything it can to lengthen the process of this war. Because that's how the U.S. rolls, right? But the Donbass region is steadily coming under... What was the one thing that Russell Bentley said? Was that the people of Donbass are only upset... Hey, Content, how you doing? The people of Donbass are only upset at Putin because he came so late. That their position really was, like, they wanted Putin to come in way, way earlier. Because what they were experiencing was war. They were experiencing daily shelling. Like, nobody talks about the Donbass war. No, it's just not part of the way that we talk about this situation. Slava Walrus. I don't know why we're saying Slava Walrus, but okay, all right. Good to see you, Major. Good to see you. So I'm going to start today with an article I found from the Windsor Star. Youth are fleeing the Liberals, but they still detest the Tories. So this thing that I've been saying over and over again, which is that we need to abandon the Conservatives and the Liberals, young people are doing just that. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is hemorrhaging youth support. As young people increasingly lose faith in the Liberals' ability to tackle skyrocketing rises in living costs. But even as the Tories aggressively position themselves as the party of affordability, they're still not moving the needle for many voters under the age of 40. New polls this week by Nanos Research shows Liberals enjoying just 22% support among 18 to 29-year-old voters. That's still extremely high in my view. That means that there's 22% of people under the age of 30 who are stupid. Just really, really stupid. It's a massive dip from their usual 34% share in the demographic, and it means the Liberals are in the rare position of being behind even the Conservatives in terms of voter intentions among 37. While Nanos numbers have shown a bit of an uptick for the Conservatives among young people, most of those dislocated voters, the ones who are abandoning the Liberals, seem to be throwing in their lot with the NDP, and that's if they plan to vote at all. This is most apparent regarding housing affordability, one of the most weighty issues for millennials and Gen Z. In a separate Nanos poll conducted recently, a clear plurality of under 35 voters, 32.6%, trusted the NDP most to deal the housing affordability crisis. Only 20.4% thought the Tories were the most likely to help them afford a home, although it was still far ahead of the 11.8% scored by the Liberals. As a rule, conservative parties, even really popular ones, consistently score dismal results among Canadians under 35 voters. Right now, Ontario Progressive Conservative leader Doug Ford is cakewalking to re-election, and even receiving unprecedented endorsements from provincial labour unions. But young people are the worst single demographic for Ford's Progressive Conservatives. According to the most recent Ledger poll in Ontario, voter intentions, just 22% of 18 to 34%-year-old voters intend to cast a vote for Ford, compared to 32% for the Liberals and 30% for the NDP. Even in Alberta, one of Canada's most consistent bastions of federal Conservative support, provincial elections would be utterly swept by Rachel Notley's NDP if they were decided by Albertans under 30. So, the question that I keep asking is, why is the older generation betraying us? That's really what it is. That's what we are experiencing, right? We are experiencing just a detachment from, and you can see it in the numbers, right? Sorry, if you're voting Conservative, you're voting for the destruction of your society. Straight up. You're basically just saying, fuck you, I got mine, I'm willing to spend more to destroy you. That's really what you're saying. And we've really got to start asking the question, in really big and serious ways. How did this happen? Why is this happening? What universe do we live in where parents are betraying their own children like this? And because that's what it is. That's what it is. Right? Well, seeing as most of our parents gaslight us in some way. Well, I mean, it's going even further than this. Now we're just getting to the point where they're just yeah, everything's terrible, shut up about it. Right? They don't care anymore. That's why we're living in this post-truth environment, right? That's why we're living in this, the people who are voting Conservative and Liberal literally don't care about the truth at all. At all. At all. They genuinely think that the solution to the problem is just to destroy everything. While accusing everyone else of being the nihilists. It's incredible to watch. It is. It's staggering to watch this total abandonment of even your own children, right? I don't understand how how do these people even look in the mirror? How do they even look at themselves? It's incredible. Politics, Military, and Economics is a good YouTube channel for Ukraine info. Good to know. Good to know. And people on Reddit say no other choice, hello, communists. Yeah, should be reminding people that the communist parties exist. Yeah, that's a way to go. And of course, I wanted to read this article. This is from the Jacobin, right? I know, it's just that they got there so everything is fine. Right? That seems to be what it really comes down to. That well, I just worked a job and I got a house and was fine, right? Meanwhile, the rest of us, I've actually seen this, where, we have sat down and been this is what the rent is, this is what the wage is, right? This is what student loans are, and I have seen people be like, oh, like shit, like at this point it's willful, right? And that's what's so disgusting about it, is that it's willfully done. That if you don't understand that the game is rigged against people who are under the age of 50, like seriously, like at this point it's everybody, right? If you don't understand that the game is rigged for the benefit of corporations, it's because you like the fact that people are suffering. There is no alternative narrative anymore. You're just like, haha, those people are suffering. I like that because I'm this way. That's who I am, right? And we've got to really confront why are so many people in the culture getting off on people's suffering, right? Like that's, in my view, that is where we are. That it's not about logic. It's not about reason. It's about smiling when someone falls on their face. It's about laughing when people suffer. That's really what I think we're seeing. That the reason why people are voting for Ford, and the reason why people are still voting conservative, and the reason why people are still voting this way is because when people fail, it makes them feel good about themselves. That's really what it is. People on Discord on VC told me, what do you mean I'm exploited? I'm given a wage for my work and I provide goods and services. Yeah, like this is a major success of the death cult, right? Well, I'm paid $7 an hour to provide goods and services, while the person who does absolutely nothing whatsoever takes away all the surplus value of my labor. That's completely fine, right? Like, people don't even realize how badly they're getting fucked over. Like, and like, I'm straight up, man. Like, there are people who just will not acknowledge the abandonment of the society until it happens to them. Like, that's it. Like, they could watch it happen to literally everybody around them. They could watch their entire community fall apart. They could watch everything happen, but until it happens to them, it's not a problem. This is the classic conservative brain rot, right? It's just like, if it happens to you, it's a you problem. If it happens to me, it's an everybody problem. I make passive income, I'm a good dog, I'm a capitalist. Yeah, like, you make money from someone else's labor, right? Like, that's how it is. Do we need to save these people, John? I mean, like, what we are doing here is trying to create a solidarity group so that we can hopefully funnel people into, like, we are watching the collapse of our society. Like, I don't know what else to say about it. Like, what we are doing here is discussing how do we deal, like, the central thesis, right? The central thesis of this channel is to document the decline and try to help people find a way through it. That's really what it is. And we are, like, overwhelmingly abandoned, and the populace seems to not be willing to accept that. That's really what it is. Like, there's just this diluted, like, that's what it means to live in post-truth. Like, we're living in this enormous period of denialism, right? Like, it's huge, the amount of denialism that we're experiencing, where you can have people who honestly say, like, wow, that IPCC report is really devastating. Well, better keep going to work. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, the whole structure of the society is tearing itself apart in notice, like, and it's obvious. Like, this is the thing that kills me the most, is that it's obvious. And yet all of these dunders are walking around being like, just get a better job. Like, ignorance is bliss. That's all. Like, just ignorance is bliss. Today I had a debate with a conservative where he straight up told me that $3,000 to start a business is cheap and just need to use GoFundMe. While I post an article demonstrating that business do not last in the long term. By 15 years, only 20% of businesses survive the 5-year mark, with almost half of them go bankrupt. Yeah. I mean, like, no, like, there was a show that I watched, I don't even remember where I saw this, but they went into old folks' homes and they asked them what they thought the average price of a house was right now. right? They just straight up were like, hey, what do you think the average price of a home is? Right? Put a mic in their face. Most common answer, $30,000. Like, we're talking about a high level, total detachment from, like, angels are coming and Jesus Christ is coming back at any moment. Like, I believe in spirits and the devil, and money is the most real thing that exists, and you only need $30,000 to get a home, so I don't know why these kids are so lazy. Like, this is what we're talking about. And it's becoming really clear and plain and obvious that keeping people uninformed and stupid in this regard is the strategy, right? Make sure that people do not understand how bad everything is, right? On fundamental levels, in basic ways. Admit nothing. Say nothing, right? Do not let people know what's going on. And it's working, right? It's working. Why do you get legit followers? I get trolls. I don't know, dude. I mean, I do get trolls in here, but I also Barnabas, it pays to remember, like, I was doing the YouTube channel for like a year before I started the live stream, right? Like, it was just the daily videos what I was doing. Just my daily, like, walk home video. And then I started the live stream after that. And that's where I really got my start. So don't get discouraged, dude. Don't get discouraged. Like, it takes a long time to build these things. It takes a long time to build these things and to gain support and to find a following at all, or to find anybody who even gives a shit. I'm still blown away by it. I'm still surprised. I'm surprised every time I start the stream and there are people in the chat who are talking to me and there are people listening. I'm surprised every time. And I'm so grateful for it, right? Because I know streamers. I've talked to plenty of streamers who said, yeah, when I was getting started, I literally would do my show to nobody. There'd be nobody in the chat. I'd start it, and maybe one person would pop in and pop out, and then I would end it, and it would be nobody the whole time. And that's never happened to me. There's always been someone in the chat. And so I'm very grateful for that, and I'm very thankful. And I'm not going to go the conservative route and say it's because I'm good at what I do, and you need to bootstrap yourself and try harder and all. Like, it's just how it is. I just meant, like, bad faith arguments. I mean, but the thing is they don't consider them bad faith. Like, they're too. Like, they don't think they're propagandized, But of course he ignored those data, and of course the data that 50 trillion was stolen from the bottom 90% of the populace to the top 1%, of course denies this is happening. Yeah, like, this is part of the harsh reality about the nature of the society, is that there's a huge segment of it that can afford to just bury their head in the sand and not pay any attention, right? Like, as long as you deny that people are drowning, you can say what you like, right? That's all. Like, as long as you deny that people are drowning, you can believe what you like. And that's what it means to live in this post-truth environment, right? That people are heavily incentivized to exist in delusion, right? That it is going to literally be, for huge sections of the populace, it will be that, oh, my house is burning down, now it's a problem, right? Now it's a problem. Yeah. Am I crazy, or is David Moskrop an NDP or bust guy? I remember him completely ignoring the Green leadership race despite there being two strong eco-socialists. Who's David Moskrop? Honestly. David Moskrop. Honestly, man, I just think people are desperate. Right? Like, people are desperate. The Washington Post already. So you're looking at a Bezos guy, right? Like, that's who this is. Sorry, if you're writing for the Washington Post, right? Canadian politics. So you're working for Jeff Bezos, right? That's who this guy works for. And, like, when will Canada's conservatives take climate change seriously? Never. Doug Ford's disastrous government should not be given another term. He will. Pierre Poilievre's infuriating campaign to be Canada's conservative leader. I actually think that this guy's running a really smart, I think that, look, Pierre Poilievre is a disaster for Canada, as any conservative is, right? Because conservatism right now means destroy the system, destroy the society, right? But this guy's actually running a hell of a good campaign. People should learn from Pierre Poilievre. Anyway, I wanted to read this one because it does sort of strike into the heart of a matter that I have been thinking about a lot myself, right? Like, how valid is electoral politics? And I mean, I more or less am of the opinion that you should vote, right? That you should at least get your voice heard. Like, go vote for the communist, right? Like, go vote for people who you think actually represent you. Don't expect any of them to win, because the system's not structured to allow that. But So I'm interested in hearing other people's perspectives. Canada's left shouldn't abandon electoral politics. In Canada, the left is still searching for the win it needs and is exasperated with the new Democratic Party. However justified these frustrations may be, abandoning the ballot would be a disaster. Electoral politics are a vital part of class struggle. A survey of Canadian political landscape reveals a foreboding terrain. Across the country, right-wing governments lead most provinces, with centrists making up all the rest, save for one new Democratic government in British Columbia. Even there, the New Democratic Party is constrained by state and electoral orthodoxy. Their governance is better than the typical alternatives, but far from ideal. In Ontario, after 4 disastrous years of pandemic mismanagement, market orthodoxy, and underspending, Progressive Conservative Premier Doug Ford appears to be sailing toward re-election, perhaps with a majority of seats in the legislature once more. The NDP official opposition may drop to 3rd place as the Liberals rebound in the polls. The Liberal government in Ottawa, with support of the federal New Democrats, looks likely to remain in power until at least 2025. At a time when we are routinely reminded that the old ways are insufficient for dealing with the problems we face, the left appears to be MIA. The federal NDP bought themselves some policy influence by way of their supply and confidence agreement to support the Liberal minority government. Nonetheless, the political agenda in Canada remains fundamentally conventional and devoid of energy. The programs that follow federally, provincially, and locally are anemic half-measures that are barely capable of forestalling angry populists' requital. When they do exist, these programs are typically means-tested and often underfunded. From the upcoming dental care to disability supports, austerity, the watchword of 1990s retrenchment, remains standing as a lighthouse in the distance, a point on the horizon to guide the ship of state. Wages and workers' rights, and decoupled from productivity, and little is happening to transform relations of power in industry, including the essential need to transfer ownership from bosses to workers, despite a new employee ownership model for the country. Climate action is insufficient. Resource extraction and export are nearly always a given. Reviewing the state of affairs in Canada, and more broadly in the electoral history of the left, it's tempting to wish to abandon electoralism as a strategy for change. Such talk comes up in breathless critiques of the NDP, hands thrown up in the air, heads hung low and shaken slowly from side to side. The urge to flip the table and walk out of the room is strong and understandable. Nothing seems to be working. The focus-grouped, tick-tock-brushed consultant class-led strategy isn't working. What's to be done? A sober theory of change. The 20th century left had a revolutionary impulse that, to whatever extent it existed in Canada, has been dampened to near silence. The Bolshevism, and even the more moderate socialism of movement and party leftists, has disappeared or gone underground. Some have joined the Communist Party. Others have given up. For the Communist Party, that was the wave. Many have fallen into the NDP machine. Some hang on, driven to the sidelines of the party. The pervasive discontent creates a counter-impulse that counsels the abandonment of the ballot box. But this impulse should be thought through carefully. In the absence of electoral politics, what is our theory of change? Do we then rely on revolution, unmasked struggle through civil society, one thing is for sure: decamping from the electoral milieu is to entirely relinquish the field to capital's most canny operators. A theory of change that rests on revolution in a 21st century democracy trapped by the comforts of its liberalism, next door to the global capitalist hegemon, is not a theory of change. Likewise, relying on extant infrastructures of opposition outside the ballot box, unions, associations, organizations, is insufficient for the needs of the moment. If, at present, this infrastructure is incapable of moving the party left, why would it do better in the absence of the party? Some will answer that such a move will short-circuit the ossifying forces of bureaucratization. But bureaucratization is an outgrowth of complex society. It isn't going anywhere. Of course, at its worst, bureaucratization can create calcified forms of organization. But we should be careful about our priorities here. The most effective way to battle against capital is the thing that matters. Hand-wringing about the bureaucracy required by the complexity of the modern state is less important than using the power of the state to beat back the market's encroachment into all aspects of our lives. Giving the boot to technocrats. For those who look to the years of the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, the radical Prairie Socialist NDP forebear, a return to previous form holds some promise. So does a more coherent, two-track approach that commits electoral politics to an antagonistic relationship with grassroots movements. It is crucial that these grassroots movements are separate from, but sympathetic to the party. We should double down on our efforts to force the NDP to stay abreast of the movement. The latent energy that is not being applied to electoral politics should be applied to ensuring the NDP embraces socialist politics and is unapologetic about it. The party should be forced to adopt a more democratic apparatus that ensures that radicals have a place to speak, to be heard, and to be listened to, from the convention floor to the riding association boardroom. That means less time for the consultants and the ad engineers. It means less time strategizing around social media quick hits that produce plenty of adrenaline and staffer high fives, but next to no votes. The party needs to be supported by a more robust external apparatus, too. This will require more cooperation with unions, tenants associations, academic support, think tank scaffolding, as well as international cooperation. These structures and relationships exist already, but they are insufficient and restrained. Furthermore, they are confused and confounded by a politics that is caught between technocratic contemporary social democracy and grassroots democratic socialism. The two forces sometimes pull in the same direction, but oftentimes in opposite directions. And when they pull at cross purposes, they fail to pull at all. The NDP needs to mobilize democratic socialists, bringing them inside the party and putting them to work. Re-radicalizing party politics. Outside the party, the NDP needs to listen to and better leverage grassroots organizations to both respond to and help shape a true mass politics on workers' rights, drug policy, housing policy, environmental policy, healthcare policy, indigenous reconciliation, and plenty more. Left movements are chartering a course the party ought to champion. Instead, far too often, because of its commitment to technocratic tinkering, the NDP de-radicalizes its politics ahead of time. The party prefers to rely on muscle memory that tends towards incrementalism, or a naive belief that Canadians simply aren't ready for more and better. But this presupposes that the big wins and structural shifts we need will come without a fight. The left needs to remake the country, reset its agenda, and reframe how we talk about politics. It needs to do so while raising a generation of Canadians committed to building a new world. The party, because it is instrumental in raising expectations as to what is possible, is key to the success of this endeavor. In the absence of electoral politics, no force implements change at the state level. Elector politics is the connective tissue between desire and outcome, but electoralism is insufficient on its own, and no party, left or otherwise, is to be trusted without an external series of forces. It requires that labor, civil society, and intellectual apparatuses work to keep it honest. By the same token, insurgent popular actions are important, but they can't replace the party. We must criticize the NDP, We must demand that the party do better. The party must be forced to commit to a radical politics that is unabashedly, unapologetically, socialist and grassroots. The alternative is more of the same. More disappointment, more half measures, more waiting. It is a chicken and egg scenario. The longer we fail to leverage the party's potential, the less appealing electoral politics will be, and the more inclined we will be to squander one of the most important quivers in our bow. The challenges we face must be met. We cannot settle into decline and hopelessness. So best to get moving now. I mean, the NDP exists as a system of dissent on behalf of capital. Like, nice idea, right? The NDP must do this, we should do this, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, that's not going to happen. The NDP has been co-opted by capital, and they exist to protect capital. Like, it's pretty clear that that's the case, and pretty straightforwardly. This idea that we're gonna, like, it sounds very similar to the rhetoric that was said of Joe Biden. We got to support Joe Biden and then push him to the left after the election, right? That's not that didn't work. It didn't happen. Why? Because Joe Biden, just like the NDP, work on behalf of capital. That's what they're for. That's what they do. They're not, like, the only reason the NDP would even listen to radical elements is to diffuse them. That's what they're for. That's their role in the system, right? The idea that we're going to vote NDP or get involved in the NDP, like, I found this article to be charmingly naive. Like, just like, yeah, okay, baby, whatever you say. Like, the NDP aren't going to do any of that. Doesn't matter. We could send, like, the only way that we are going to get anything done in the NDP is with overwhelming numbers. That's it, right? And I'm talking numbers to such an overwhelming degree that we simply take over the NDP. Like, that's the goal, right? The goal is not to work with the NDP. The NDP have already turned against us, right? With Jagmeet Singh propping up the Liberal government, right? This treacherous group of fucking Nazi supporters. Like, there's no hope there, right? The only hope is for us to organize outside of the NDP and then take it over, right? Like Jagmeet Singh did. There's no... Yep, the author demands socialism, but then advocates for milquetoast democratic socialism, the cowardly ideology of Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn. Disavow yourself of this pseudo-left drivel. Yeah. John, are you advocating a version of Trotskyist entryism? Look, maybe. I don't actually know that. I'm not aware of that position. All I understand is numbers, okay? That if you have 1,000 and they have 100, you win. That's how electoral politics actually works. The idea that we should be I think that what's charming about this article and what tilts it into a place that I can't take seriously is the idea that we need to be working with the NDP. No, we don't. No, we don't. Straight up. No, we don't. The NDP are our enemies. They do not work on behalf of the left. They do not work on behalf of the workers. They do not work on behalf of anyone except themselves. And what we need to be doing is forming up a political movement, a populist movement, in order to overwhelm them. Straightforwardly. And should we actually go into the NDP, that should be our explicit statement. That we're not here to work with you guys. We're here to take this party over. Like, that's it. And yeah, taking over the NDP is further from a reality now than what is happening when the Leap was happening. Yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, the NDP is incredibly weak. They're an incredibly weak party, and they're weak because they've sold out to capital, right? They're supposed to be weak. Like, that's what's happened. That the leadership basically works on behalf of capital. They've been completely weakened, right? There is no left. Like, who are these leftists we're talking about? Can you even point at any? Like, who genuinely, like, I'm being quite serious right now. Who are these leftists we're talking about? Near as I can tell, we've got, like, maybe democratic socialists, which are, like, center-right as far as I'm concerned. Like, who are these leftists we're talking about? Like, I don't have any idea. Fun fact, EFZ all but confirmed that Neil Young was the Leap financial backer. Yeah, I mean, and again, like but it just shows you like the Leap Forward manifesto, right? That's what we're talking about. Like probably one of the most reasonable documents that's been ever made. Like, hey, maybe we should have a plan, right? Maybe we should have a plan, right? Maybe, given the crisis that we're encountering, we should make a plan. What do you guys think? A plan? Huh? Even that can't get any support. We don't live in a world that cares about any of that, right? Like we're still bickering about like whether women are people. Like that's where we're at. All right, guys, my dog is like staring at me. He wants some peanut butter. Peanut butter break. Peanut butter break. I should have done this before the stream started. I knew there was something I was forgetting. But I know you guys really tune in for the chair stream, right? This is the most popular moment of the stream, is when I do the chair stream. I know it's true. You guys are just here to pay homage to the chair. Oh, great and powerful chair. All right, Mr. Poops. There you go, bud. There you go. All right, I gotta remember to do that before the stream starts. It is pretty bad. Pretty bad. All right. Yeah, but that's just it. Yeah, we don't have leftists, we have radical liberals, yeah. And I mean, what's a radical liberal? Like, what is that even? Like, and the Leap wasn't that impressive, right? But that's how bad, like, that's how unintelligent we are as a species. This better than Clint Eastwood's speech at the Republican convention a few years back, yeah. Yeah, to the chair. Is it just John who missed that when I brought up David Moscovitz, who's the author of the article? No, I put it together. But it's just like, I'm really, I think what I'm sick and tired of the most, and I am getting sick and tired of it. Like, I keep seeing it, especially in the basic income movement, right? Yet another article gets written being like, look at all the benefits. Look at how good this would be. Look. And then they come to the end of it. And there was even one recently that literally was like, basic income's such a good idea. Why isn't it happening? And then what was the article? Look at how good an idea this is. And it didn't even attempt to tackle the question. It didn't even attempt to look at the question. And it didn't attempt even for a second to actually say, like, why isn't it happening? Right? Like, let's actually do the analysis. Why isn't it happening? Right? Because they don't want to actually confront the real answer. And the real answer is that the society has been taken over, that the structure of the system has been taken over by psychos. Right? Just people who are the most despicable actors in the society, but in huge and large margins. Right? We don't want to actually say out loud that these people are benefiting from our suffering and enjoy watching us suffer, and whose solutions are actually literally suffer more, right? Oh, you want a place to live? You want food and shelter? Go get a job doing destroying the society, right? Like we're in this like hellish connective place, and nobody's talking about it, right? Nobody's talking about it at all. Yeah, UBI, you mean giving things to people that didn't earn it? Dear God! Yeah, right? Like, I mean, you're dealing with people who are destroying the society for their own children, so, like, what are you talking about, right? Like, there's no point negotiating with these guys, right? They don't care about facts and evidence or the truth, right? They don't care about any of that. They don't even care about their own children, right? They don't care about their own children. And, like, our goal is not to convince them, because they can't be convinced. They don't have the empathy or the reasonable or the rationality to be convinced. Our goal is now to just deal with it. Really, that's what it is. Yeah. Being kind to people, what's going to be after? Giving clean water? Like, I mean, It's shocking to hear Canadians say, what, give people they didn't earn? It's like, what, like healthcare, right? Like, we give healthcare to people, they didn't earn it, right? Like, because we understand that we want to live in a society that's not full of sick, broken down people, right? Like, we've created this understanding amongst one another. Like, it's the reason we fund education. It's because we don't want to have stupid people everywhere, right? Like, not that that's worked, right? Like, the defunding of the civil society, right, is just turning us into barbarians. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty obvious, right? Like, we're a barbaric culture, and we're a barbaric people, and so that's the way we're going. Yeah, they look like they think people leaving the faucet running all day long because we don't pay water, yeah. Just listened to Jordan Peterson and Pierre Poilievre talk for 2 hours, and Poilievre didn't give a single policy position that would help average people with affordability. What an absolute grifter. Yeah. I mean, which one are you talking about? You talking about Poilievre or Peterson? Right? Like, the goal of the Conservatives is to make money for themselves. Exclusively. Like, Pierre Poilievre's job is to make money for Pierre Poilievre. Just like Doug Ford's job is to make money for Doug Ford. Like, they don't care about anybody else. They don't care about anything. Like, if you happen to also make money, then that's fine, as long as they're making money, right? Just save $1,600 so you can pay first and last. Then you deserve a room. Then you can have a room. Yeah, exactly. We might as well push from a further left perspective. No UBI, UBN instead. Universal basic necessities that are adequate for needs of recreation. Yeah, I mean, I've been saying this about the Fight for 15 movement, right? Like, the Fight for 15 movement is as weak as it gets. Like, that literally these guys were fighting for table scraps. Just like, literally, please, sir, please, can I please not be homeless? Like, that's literally the position. When any rational thinking person with a spine would be saying, no, these guys are worthless. Like, we should be saying, give us the means of production. Like, that's the position. And stop pretending like it's radical. What's radical is the wholesale destruction of the society and the species. That's radical, right? Saying don't do that is not a radical position. Like, this is what's insane about our society the most, is that we've been taken over by, like, extremists, like, the most radical extremists you can find in the society, right? People who literally are like, we should go overseas and murder people because they have different skin colors than us. People who are like, funding Nazis is fine as long as they're our Nazis, right? People who literally are like, abandoning our children before they're even born is fine because they'll have to just toughen up. Like, these are their positions, right? That's what they say, and we're all supposed to believe that they're anything except extremist, insane, crazed nut jobs. And if you stand up and say, oh, hey, maybe people should just have access to food and shelter, then you're considered the extremist. Because rationality and reason in an extremist society is itself considered extremism, right? Was it this one? Yeah.
In contrast, Russian elections are rigged. Political opponents are imprisoned or otherwise eliminated from participating in the electoral process. The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq. of Ukraine. Iraq. Anyway.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Like, perfect timing, dude. Like, perfect. Like, no one should listen to this man for any reason whatsoever. Like, this man's as bad as Mussolini, Hitler. Like, pick somebody, right? Like, just as big of a lunatic, just as crazed, right? In my view, like, just because he comes out and talks with an old timey folks at home thing, and instead of being like like instead of that, right? Doesn't mean he's any less deranged, right? It's like completely deranged. Yep, the ecosystem collapsing is pretty radical to me. Yeah. Yeah, he just kept saying there are gatekeepers. There's always gatekeepers, dude. He just wants to be the gatekeeper so he can exclude the the populace from the project of prosperity, right? And I wonder why Canadians buy the compassion argument. Like, he's just outright revealing to everybody that he's just a cold-eyed sociopath, right? Like, Pierre Poilievre's never worked a day in his life. He literally graduated from university and joined the Harper administration. Like, that... and he's just been a sitting conservative since then, right? He's never worked a job. He's a landlord. Like, he's just a cold-eyed sociopath, which is why he's such an effective liar, right? Like, he's an incredibly effective grifter. Like, and he's gonna win because Canadians love liars. Like, we love them. We're, like, case in point, like, we love liars. We're huge fans. You know who else is a political prisoner? Assange, yeah. Check and balance is so good in the USA. The party that lost the election is getting their politics passed. Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, dude. John, did you get my chant? Oh, yeah. Oh, boop, bump. Do, 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 beep, bop. Canadian imperialism's fascist friends. Part 2. Hitler's accomplices, the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists. The Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists, whose actions and legacy are celebrated by the state-sponsored Ukrainian-Canadian Congress, is the political ideological fount of the fascist forces that are playing such a prominent and reactionary role in contemporary Ukraine. We'll do numbers after this. In 1940, the OUN split into two groups over how best to collaborate with Nazi Germany to secure a Ukrainian national state. In pursuit of that collaboration and their rival visions of a fascist state, both factions would commit horrific crimes. Both supported the Nazis' war of annihilation against the Soviet Union that claimed the lives of over 27 million Soviet citizens and participated in the Holocaust of European Jewry. The OUN, Melnik, sought to work within Nazi Germany's occupation regime and promoted the formation of the Galicia Division of the Waffen-SS. It was this organization that the grandfather of Canada's Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, belonged. The OUN Bandera, many of whose members were likewise provided refuge in post-World War II Canada, also systematically embedded its forces in the Nazi military machine and its repressive apparatus in German-occupied Poland, and later in the Soviet Union. But the OUNB took a more radical stance, going beyond the remit its Nazi patrons and allies had given it. After entering Lvov in June 1941 as part of the Nazi force that invaded the USSR, they declared the creation of an independent Ukrainian state, one they stressed would be an integral part of the Nazi-led New Europe. Frictions ensued, but both sides strove to maintain their alliance, and up until the war's end, the Bandera-led OUN-B and the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, or UPA, collaborated with the Nazis and the Wehrmacht in fighting the Red Army and Soviet partisans, terrorizing the population and exterminating Ukrainian Jews. It also killed tens of thousands of Poles in pursuit of an ethnically pure Ukraine. The OUN and the origins of Ukrainian fascism. Contemporary apologists for the OUN insist that they were forced into an impossible situation during World War II, and can at most be accused of opportunistically embracing Nazi support and its anti-Semitism. These claims are without any historical foundation. The OUN was a fascist organization from its inception that long sought Nazi support and whose role in the mass extermination of Ukrainian Jews was politically prepared and prefigured by its actions in the decade prior to the war's outbreak in 1939. The OUN was founded in 1929 through the merger of several far-right organizations, among them the League for the Liberation of Ukraine, which had arisen out of the union of the Ukrainian fascists and the Ukrainian Military Organization, UVO. comprised of veterans of the Ukrainian national forces that had fought the Bolsheviks during the civil war that followed the 1917 October Revolution. The UVO supplied much of the OUN's initial leadership. Socially, the OUN was comprised of frustrated and embittered petty bourgeoisie, as well as dispossessed landlords and other notables. Politically, it was animated by pathological hatred for the October Revolution and the Soviet Union. Ideologically, it was part of the broader fascist, militarist, and anti-egalitarian current that developed in the aftermath of the unprecedented violence and dislocation of World War I, and in direct reaction against the Russian Revolution and the socialist strivings of the European working class. But the OUN and its supporters were especially angered and aggrieved. From their perspective, the socialist revolution in Russia and the Ukraine had cheated them out of their birthright, a Ukrainian state where they would rule the roost, as well in many cases of their property and other privileges. Moreover, those they perceived as their ethnic rivals had been strengthened. There now was a Polish republic, including on territory the Ukrainian nationalists coveted, which was repressing its Ukrainian minority. And as a result of the Russian Revolution, Ukraine's Jews, long the target of pogroms and the Tsarist government's Black Hundred agitation, enjoyed unprecedented freedom. Like the White Russian emigres, the Ukrainian far right helped fashion and promote the myth of Judeo-Bolshevism, which held the Jews responsible for the revolution, for them the incarnation of the Antichrist. An inexplicably fascist form of anti-Semitism, the Judeo-Bolshevism canard, would be invoked by the Nazis and their Ukrainian allies in the OUN in inciting genocide. The October Revolution and Ukraine. Between 1918 and 1921, there were multiple attempts to establish a capitalist Ukrainian state in the Ukrainian majority territories of the former Tsarist Empire, and, after World War I defeat and collapse of the multi-ethnic Austro-Hungarian Empire in Galicia, all were short-lived. The Ukrainian nationalists in historically Russian-held eastern Ukraine sought and received German imperialist support. However, they lost their patrons in Berlin when the Kaiser's regime collapsed, due to the twin blows of the military defeat at the hands of the Allies and the November 1918 Workers' Revolution. Ukraine subsequently became a major arena in the Civil War, with the revolutionary workers' and peasants' governments established in the 1917 October Revolution, pitted against an array of counter-revolutionary forces. These included the imperialist-backed white armies based on Russia's landlord and capitalist elite, the Ukrainian bourgeoisie nationalists, and the newly founded Polish Republic, led by Pilsudski. The Ukrainian nationalists vehemently opposed the social revolution carried out by Ukraine's workers and peasants under the leadership of the Bolsheviks and begged for imperialist patronage. Their nationalist armies carried out pogroms, as did the whites, during the course of the Civil War, in which up to 200,000 Jews were murdered. Because they advanced a revolutionary program that addressed a fundamental social and democratic needs of the masses, the Bolsheviks, under Lenin and Trotsky's leadership, prevailed. The Red Army enforced the expropriation of the landlords, who for centuries had cruelly exploited Ukraine's majority peasant population. The Bolsheviks were also keenly aware of the necessity of providing political support to the national democratic aspirations of the Ukrainian people, long trampled on by the Tsarist regime, and now would-be successors in the leadership of the whites. This was not a matter of expediency. The Bolsheviks had placed the struggle against Great Russian chauvinism, and for the right to self-determination for Russia's oppressed peoples, at the center of their struggle for the unity, political independence, and hegemony of the working class. Only unqualified recognition of this right, wrote Lenin in 1917, makes it possible to advocate a free union of the Ukrainians and the Great Russians, and actually break completely and irrevocably with this cursed Tsarist past, when everything was done to bring about a mutual estrangement of the two peoples so close to each other in language, territory, and history. A document drafted by Trotsky in 1919 underscored the Bolsheviks' determined struggle on this issue. It declared, "In view of the fact that Ukrainian culture has for centuries been suppressed by Tsarism, and the exploiting classes of Russia, the Central Committee of the Russian Communist Party makes it obligatory for all members of the party to help in every way to remove all obstacles to the free development of the Ukrainian language and culture. These socialist internationalist conceptions animated the founding of the Soviet Union in 1922 as a voluntary association of Soviet republics, including Soviet Ukraine. The OUN in the 1930s, the development of Ukrainian genocidal nationalism. While the OUN's fascism developed as a direct reaction against the Bolsheviks' socialist internationalist program and efforts to unite the working class in a multinational socialist state, it was ideologically radicalized still further by the emergence and coming to power of fascist movements in much of Europe. During the 1930s, the OUN was headquartered in Rome, reflecting its internal affinity for the Mussolini regime. But after the coming to power of Hitler in 1933, for both ideological and geopolitical reasons, it increasingly oriented toward the Nazi regime. This was particularly true of a younger generation of leaders, of whom Stepan Bandera would prove the most influential. Leading OUN members worked with and for the intelligence agencies of Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, and cadre involved in its campaign of assassinations of Polish and Soviet officials were trained in Italy, alongside members of the Ustasha, the Croatian fascist movement the Nazis would place in power in April 1941. The OUN's role as Nazi henchmen in the Holocaust and application of genocidal violence against other perceived enemies of the Ukrainian nation was foreshadowed and politically prepared in the development of its ideology and discourse in the 1930s. Plans for mass murder were discussed and elaborated in the writings of OUN ideologues and at their congresses. One such document, developed through presentations at multiple OUN congresses and other OUN gatherings, was titled The War Doctrine of the Ukrainian Nationalists. Our uprising, it declared, is not intended to change only the political order. It should cleanse Ukraine of the alien and hostile element, and of our miserable element. The more the alien element is killed during the uprising, the easier it will be to rebuild the Ukrainian state, and the stronger it will be. It went on to advocate the mass extermination of Jews, citing a potential figure of 500,000, because the more Jews will be killed during the uprising, the better for the Ukrainian state. Noxious as were the politics of the OUN, its toxic brew of Ukrainian nationalism, fervent anti-Bolshevism, and virulent anti-Semitism was able to gain growing support in the majority Ukrainian inhabited region of what was then southeast Poland by exploiting the disappointment, confusion, and anger created by the actions of the Soviet Stalinist bureaucracy. Having usurped political power from the working class, the bureaucracy repudiated the program of socialist internationalism and revived the worst traditions of great Russian chauvinism. The Stalin regime's sudden and brutal implementation of forced collectivization in the early 1930s have had a devastating impact on Soviet Ukraine. Discussing these developments, Trotsky wrote in 1939, in the conception of the old Bolshevik Party, Soviet Ukraine was destined to become a powerful axis, around which the other sections of the Ukrainian people would unite. It is indisputable that in the first period of its existence, Soviet Ukraine exerted a mighty, attractive force, in national respects as well, and aroused to the struggle the worker, peasant, and revolutionary intelligentsia of Western Ukraine, enslaved by Poland. But during the years of Thermidorian reaction, the position of Soviet Ukraine, and together with it, the posing of the Ukrainian question as a whole, changed sharply. The more profound the hopes aroused, the keener was the disillusionment. The bureaucracy strangled and plundered the people within Great Russia too. But in the Ukraine, matters were further complicated by the massacre of national hopes. Nowhere did restrictions, purges, repressions, and in general all forms of bureaucratic hooliganism assume such murderous sweep as they did in the Ukraine in the struggle against the powerful, deeply rooted longings of the Ukrainian masses for greater freedom and independence. To the totalitarian bureaucracy, Soviet Ukraine became an administrative division of an economic unit and a military base of the USSR. Toward the sections of the Ukraine now outside its frontiers, the Kremlin attitude today is the same as it is towards all oppressed nationalities, all colonies and semi-colonies, i.e., small change in its international combinations with imperialist governments. Trotsky went on to discuss the calamitous impact that the Stalinist bureaucracy's criminal policies had on the Ukrainian workers and peasants beyond the borders of Soviet Ukraine. Not a trace remains of the former confidence and sympathy of the Western Ukrainian masses for the Kremlin, he wrote. Since the last murderous purge in the Ukraine, no one in the West wants to become part of the Kremlin satrapy, which continues to bear the name of Soviet Ukraine. The worker and peasant masses in the Western Ukraine, in Bukovina, in the Carpatho-Ukraine, are in a state of confusion. Where to turn? What to demand? This situation naturally shifts the leadership to the most reactionary Ukrainian cliques, who express their nationalism by seeking to sell the Ukrainian people to one imperialism or another, in return for a promise of fictitious independence. Upon this tragic confusion, Hitler bases his policy in the Ukrainian question. The first phase of World War II in Eastern Europe and the split in the OUN. Only a few months after Trotsky wrote these words, Stalin's counter-revolutionary maneuvering with the imperialist powers would culminate in what arguably was the most cynical and politically reprehensible combination of them all, one that directly impacted the Ukrainian masses and strengthened reaction the world over. The Hitler-Stalin Pact. On September 1st, 1939, 9 days after the signing of the Hitler-Stalin Pact, Nazi Germany invaded Poland, triggering the outbreak of World War II. OUN cadres in Poland, principally Bandera's faction, supported the Nazi invaders by carrying out acts of sabotage against Polish military forces. They also carried out ethnically motivated attacks on Polish civilians, killing, according to one estimate, 3,000 people. Even John Armstrong, an American political scientist who helped the Ukrainian fascists sanitize their record by labeling them integral nationalists, conceded that the OUN served as a faithful German auxiliary from the very start of the war. When Stalin, enacting the secret protocols of his pact with Hitler, ordered the Red Army to invade eastern Poland, the OUN forces fled into Nazi-occupied Poland. Krakow soon became the center of Ukrainian far-right activity. This was because it was the seat of the general government, the part of the Nazi-occupied Poland not annexed to the Third Reich, and the administrative center for the Polish-Ukrainian borderlands, now under Nazi rule. The more conservative faction of the OUN, loyal to Andriy Melnik, organized a Ukrainian Central Committee that successfully petitioned the general government for recognition as a mechanism for interacting with and controlling the Ukrainian-speaking population. The Nazi authorities viewed the local population through the prism of their racialist ideology and hierarchy, but they also recognized the value of the UTSK as a means of exploiting and inciting ethnic tensions. So the Poles and Ukrainians never come together, to use the words of Hans Frank, the Munich beer hall putsch veteran Hitler installed as head of the general government. Led by Volodymyr Kubiyovich, a hitherto obscure Ukrainian geographer, the UTSK was officially a social welfare organization, as the Nazis dissolved all non-Nazi political organizations. The UTSK was, in fact, deeply political, and its leaders saw the Nazi takeover as an opportunity for expanded influence, and also for revenge against their ethnic and political enemies. The Melnik faction urged OUN members to integrate themselves into the Nazi regime's military security apparatus. Its focus, however, was on working within the political and administrative structures established by Nazi-occupied general governments. Those around Bandera, now liberated from a Polish jail cell, on the other hand, focused on embedding themselves into the repressive apparatus and military machine of the Nazis. Soon after their conquest of Poland, the Nazis recruited 120 members of the OUN for training at a Gestapo police school at Zakopane under 2 German officers. The commander of the Ukrainians was Mykola Lebed, who would later become head of the OUNB's ruthless SB security services, and after the war, a lifelong CIA asset. Subsequently, one of Bandera's closest associates, Roman Shukovich, became the leading Ukrainian officer of the Nachtigal Battalion, one of the 2 battalions composed largely of Bandera supporters set up by the Abwehr German military intelligence. The future commander of the Ukrainian insurgent army, Shukovich, and the Nachtigal Battalion that he helped direct were involved in the massacre of thousands of Jews in western Ukraine between June and July 1941. Differences over how to best secure and make use of Nazi support in realizing their goal of a Ukrainian state and an ethnically cleansed Ukraine for Ukrainians led in February 1940 to a formal split, with the rival groupings named after their respective leaders, each of whom fashioned himself as a Führer, the OUN-M and OUN-B. Hitler's cheerleaders and accomplices, the record of the OUN-led Ukrainian Central Committee, and Krakowski Visti. By December 1939, Poland's Nazi occupiers were so satisfied with the UTSC's protestations of support that they allowed it to establish a publishing house, using a printing press stolen from a Krakow-based Jewish newspaper, Nauzy Dzneki, whose owners were later murdered at the Belzec death camp. The UTSC quickly established its own newspaper, Krakowski Visti, Krakow News. It was the only Ukrainian-language newspaper sanctioned within the general government, and by all accounts, the most influential Ukrainian newspaper in Nazi-ruled Europe until the Third Reich's impending collapse forced it to cease publication at the end of March 1945. Launched on Orthodox Christmas Day, January 7th, 1940, Krakowski Visti became a daily from November 1940. Mikhailo Chromaik, the maternal grandfather of Canada's Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, was editor-in-chief for all but a handful of Krakowski's Visti's initial issues, as the German occupation authorities had removed his predecessor for being insufficiently pliant. Chromaik would be handsomely rewarded for churning out pro-Nazi propaganda, and personally benefited from the dispossession of Poland's Jews. He was given a luxury apartment in the Pershatow Palace at 15 Staroslana, stolen by the Nazis from the Jew Dr. Finkelstein, along with the doctor's furniture. Chromaik discreetly described the latter as being handed down to me when he moved to a second stolen apartment. On September 19, 1940, Freeland's beloved grandfather sent a letter to the Treuhandstelle, the predatory German state agency officially charged with stripping Jews of their property, demanding he be reimbursed for the 190 zloty he had spent to delouse this second apartment. Only 3 days prior, all confiscated Jewish properties in the general government officially came under the control of the Haupttreuhandstelle Ost. Thus, Chromaik seems to have very much been at the head of the line for the spoils of the Holocaust in Krakow. Under Chromaik and the UTSC's direction, Krakowski Vista extolled the virtues of Nazi rule and Nazi-Ukrainian collaboration. It regularly reproduced articles from the Nazi German press, including the official Nazi organ, the Volkischer Beobachter. Krakowski Visti would proclaim the launching of the Nazi War of Annihilation against the Soviet Union in 1941 the most justified war in history, and later promoted the creation of an all-Ukrainian division of the Waffen-SS. From its first issues, Krakowski Visti engaged in anti-Jewish incitement, publishing virulent anti-Semitic screeds and caricatures, and pressing for the seizure of Jewish property. Further evidence of the Ukrainian fascists' eager collaboration with the Nazis in their attempts to profiteer from the persecution, dispossession, and subsequent annihilation of the Jews of Poland and Ukraine is documented in thousands of pages of UTSK correspondence with the German authorities. In Krakowiecki-Wisty's inaugural issue, we read the following analysis from none other than General Hans Frank of the new conditions of life for Ukrainians under Nazi rule. Free from the compulsion of outrageous policy of your intellectual ruling class, do everything for your good by fulfilling the general duty to work under the powerful protection of Greater Germany. Under just rule, everyone will earn a living. However, for political instigators, economic hyenas, and Jewish moneylenders, there will be no place in the space under German supremacy. On the opposite page, there is a fascist propaganda photo of Ukrainians in national dress, presenting Frank with bread and salt, a traditional offering of hospitality. This image, more than any other, sets the tone for the UTSK's relationship with the Nazi state and that of the Ukrainian nationalists with imperialism more generally. Krakowiecki-Wisty routinely emphasized the parallels between and common aims of the Nazi German and Ukrainian nationalist causes and struggles. It urged Ukrainians to both learn from Germany's purported Hitler-led national revival and to look to them as allies and protectors in dealing mortal blows to the enemies of the Ukrainian nation, the Rusu Bolsheviks, Poles, and Jews. Posing the question, what is the war in the West about? Kromaic and the OUNM Ukrainian fascists provided the following answer. The war in the West was the result of the same incitement and dissension that sowed and sought to perpetrate forever. The Soviet settlement dictated to the world in 1918. We Ukrainians were also its victims and the subject of experiments. Germany fought against this system of organized violence, and we Ukrainians also fought in unusually difficult circumstances. Hence, the spontaneous and sincere response of mutual sympathy between those who will stand up to the struggle against what was not and could not be right, existence against the arbitrariness organized in Versailles. We watched with sympathy as German victory, in cooperation with the able-bodied people, broke the shackles step by step, as the German people gained sovereignty in their own homeland. In April 24th, 1940, Krakowiecki-Wisty paid tribute to Adolf Hitler on the occasion of his birthday, with a glowing portrait that characterized him as a great figure of the 20th century. Again, the link between Hitler's military reconquest of territories lost to Germany as a result of World War I and the unification of all ethnic Germans under a single national state was promoted as an example for Ukrainian nationalists to follow. He revived the sense of national community in all Germans living in the world and united them in one native idea and organization. He threw off the shackles of the infamous Treaty of Versailles, revived the German armed forces on land, sea, and air in unprecedented proportions, and gradually, but with iron consistency and steadfastness, took back all the once lost lands and provinces. Porusia, Austria, Sudetenland, and then the Czech Republic. Anti-Jewish incitement and plunder. In its 6th issue, published January 5th, 1940, Krakowiecki-Wisty featured on its front page a campaign against speculation undertaken by the Nazi authorities. Titled Death Penalty for Speculators, it was accompanied by a vicious, anti-Semitic cartoon. The campaign served as the pretext to seize the assets of Jews in Krakow, so they could be appropriated by the Treuhandstelle, the agency that later provided Krakowiecki-Wisty's editor with his palatial apartment. From January to March 1940, the Nazi authorities forced Jews in Krakow to register all property and assets. The anti-Semitic caricature, published by Krakowiecki-Wisty, would have circulated in Krakow at the height of this campaign. Many thousands of people would have seen it. Its caption makes the link between the anti-speculation drive and the Nazi campaign to remove Jewish people from economic life perfectly clear. No speculators. You will not earn a living under my roof. Oh, sorry guys. My pug is in distress. Pug's in distress. Pug's in distress. Pug's in distress. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? I know. We're reading about Nazis. Nazis and Ukrainians. Oh my! It's a very difficult situation. Puggies and Nazis, Ukrainians, oh my. Puggies and Nazis, Ukrainians, oh my. Puggies and Nazis, Ukrainians, oh my. I know. I know. I know. You okay, buddy? You okay? Okay, buddy. Down you go. Dogs, am I right? Am I right? In the same issue, we find a story about the newly formed Ukrainian Cooperative Bank. It informs us that during the Polish Jewish rule, Ukrainians had to face difficult obstacles at every step, which were very difficult to stop, and then completely overshadowed the development of our lives in every area, especially in the economic area. Everywhere in purely Ukrainian neighborhoods, we saw only a Jew, a Pole, a Jew, and once again a Jew. The Jews were the singers, who in our villages and towns completely mastered the economic life, and in a terrible way, exploited the Ukrainian poor. Vital conditions have changed. In the princely garden of Sanok, shop signs are in Ukrainian, German, and Polish. However, we still see, unfortunately, many five-armed stars of Zion and the inscription Jewish shop. In the center of the city, we also see a new sign with the inscription Ukrainian Cooperative Bank. The OUNM-led Ukrainian Central Committee and its organ, Cracovsky Visti, would show great interest in promoting the Ukrainian cooperative movement, which flourished on the basis of properties expropriated by the Nazi authorities through Treuhandstel and reallocated to grasping Ukrainian petty bourgeoisie. Many of these businesses in turn purchased ads in Cracovsky Visti. While the Nazis sought to overcome the crisis of German capitalism through military conquest, the Ukrainian fascists sought to enrich themselves and compensate for the historic weakness of the Ukrainian bourgeoisie and petty bourgeoisie through Nazi-enforced racial ethnic plunder. Just as they had hoped to carve out a political space for themselves by serving the Third Reich, so the OUN sought to expand Ukrainian capitalism by collaborating with the Nazis and pleading for a share of the booty plundered from their ethnic rivals. Cracovsky Visti's 35th issue, published on May 4, 1940, declared in a celebratory tone, Ukrainian private merchants took over all the best shops in the former Jewish market. Cracovsky Visti's anti-Jewish incitement drew on traditional anti-Semitic tropes, as well as the more recently developed and expressly fascist Judeo-Bolshevik pathogen. On Easter 1940, Cracovsky Visti informed its readers that Christ is risen, and that Jews had been responsible for his crucifixion, repeating the medieval incitement to pogroms. In 1943, while campaigning for the creation of the Glacia Division of the Waffen-SS, the newspaper edited by Freeland's grandfather published a series of tirades against the Jews, many of which promoted the Judeo-Bolshevik canard. Among them was a piece by the writer and future emigree to Canada, Olena Kaisilevska, titled Who Ruined the Hutzol Region? It is ostensibly about the southeasternmost part of the Carpathian Mountains. The article's subheadings are an indictment. How Jews destroyed Hutzol wealth. How Jews threw out the Hutzol from his home. How Jews destroyed carpet making. Jews and the spreading of Bolshevism. According to Kaisilevska, all was not lost, however. Writing in the midst of the Holocaust, she concluded her anti-Semitic tirade with the observation that Jews are now gone from the Carpathian Mountains. Through the pages of Cracovsky Visti, the Ukrainian fascists also promoted virulent anti-Russian and anti-Polish ethnic chauvinism. They welcomed the expansion of the Treuhandstel's mandate to include the seizure of Polish-owned businesses and properties. In a November 1941 intelligence report, based on his eyewitness observations, the former United States Vice Consul in Poland drew attention to the privileged position some Ukrainians have been able to secure in German-occupied Poland through the collaboration with the Nazi authorities. The Ukrainian element in Poland constitutes a privileged class and can obtain food from German stores on cards identical with those of Reich and Volksstadt. They are employed in German offices in Krakow, Warsaw, and in the provincial districts. A large number are treuhanders, officials appointed to manage. industrial and commercial firms confiscated from Jews. In an unmistakable reference to Krakowski Visti, the U.S. diplomat added, "The Ukrainian press in Poland is loud in its praise of Hitler and the Nazis." He also noted the large numbers of Ukrainians employed in the Nazi security apparatus, positions they had frequently been instructed to assume by the Ukrainian fascists. It is well known that most of the jails in the southern part of the general government are staffed by Ukrainians. They treat the Poles even more harshly than do the Germans. They are given instruction in special police schools. Krakowski Visti published a series of articles in 1943 to 44 decrying the denationalizing impact of mixed marriages between Ukrainians and Poles. Their fellow Ukrainian fascists and bitter rivals in Bandera's UPA would contemporaneously provide their own horrific solution to the Latinic problem during their ethnic cleansing operations targeting Poles. They demanded Ukrainians kill their Polish spouses. The June 1941 Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union provided new opportunities for the Ukrainian fascists to profit from the persecution, dispossession, and destruction of Poland's and Ukrainians' Jewish population. In the weeks immediately after Operation Barbossa's launch, the head of the OUNM dominated UTSK and Krakowski Visti's publisher, Vladimir Kubyovich, man guys, so many words that I'm not used to reading, submitted documents to the Hitler regime setting out plans for the forced removal of Jews and Poles from Galicia and the creation of an ethnic Ukrainisch, oh man, are you serious? Volksgemeinschaft, or Ukrainians People's Community, on the Nazi model. The German authorities recorded the UTSK's demands with their own commentary. In order to preserve the Ukrainian settlement area in the general government, the Ukrainians are asking for the borders of the Ukrainian area to be fixed, into which Polish and Jewish evacuees should not be deployed. In addition, they ask for Polish and Jewish elements to be removed from these areas. Ukrainians were to be identified as distinct from Poles and Jews, and thus be treated distinctly under the law, based on a separate identity card, or Kenkart. This was a measure to which the Nazi authorities readily agreed. On August 29, 1941, Kubyovich wrote to Hans Frank setting out additional demands for the seizure of Jewish land. Considering that all Jewish property originally belonged, for the most part, to the Ukrainian people, and only through ruthless lawbreaking on the part of the Jews and through their exploitation of members of the Ukrainian people did it pass into Jewish possession, we deem it a requirement of justice in order to make restitutions to the Ukrainian people for moral and material damages, that a very considerable portion of confiscated Jewish property be returned to the Ukrainian people. In particular, all Jewish holdings should be given to Ukrainian peasants. A report from the general government in 1941 describes the success of the Ukrainian cooperatives established in the space formerly occupied by Jewish businesses. Page 3 of the document, What the Ukrainians and the General Government Expect from the Ukrainian Cooperative System, notes, the elimination of Judaism from trade both in the towns and in the villages has given the Ukrainian people the opportunity to replace the missing trade apparatus with trade cooperatives. In this regard, the Ukrainian cooperative system achieved great results, even before the war in East Galicia, in which it was able, through national solidarity, to gradually push Judaism first out of trade and then out of industry on a large scale. What is left out of this account is that Jews were pushed out of industry into ghettos and concentration camps, then subsequently into gas chambers or before firing squads. The pushing was aided and abetted by the Ukrainian fascists, as was much of the killing. Seized Jewish property was transformed into these Ukrainian cooperative societies, which grew from 200 in 1939 to more than 900 by 1941. The extent to which the UTSK's policies facilitated the seizure and exploitation of stolen Polish and Jewish property is a subject which has yet to be fully examined by historians. Even absent a deeper historical investigation, it is clear that Krakowski-Visti's role cannot be considered without reference to these plans promoted by its publisher. As we explained in the first part of this series, when Freeland's political ancestry was publicly exposed in 2017, the political establishment and corporate media rushed to defend Canada's Deputy Prime Minister with the claim that she was the target of a Russian disinformation campaign. As part of its defense of Freeland, the media sought to minimize the import of her grandfather's actions as a predominant Nazi collaborator. 2 scholarly articles authored decades ago by Chromaic's historian son-in-law, in one case with Freeland's assistance, were dredged up so as to make the claim that Krakowski-Visti did not agitate against the Jews, apart from 2 regrettable instances. According to this exculpatory argument, the first of these instances came in July 1941, and was triggered by the discovery of several thousand prisoners, whom agents of the NKVD, the Stalinist regime's secret police, murdered as they fled before Operation Barbossa's initial thrust. This crime was seized on by the Nazis and their allies to incite, justify, and expand the mass anti-Jewish violence, already well underway. The July 8, 1941 issue of Krakowski-Visti declared of the NKVD massacre, "We lay this all to the account of the Jewish potentates in the Kremlin, whose crimes against the whole world will find appropriate retribution." The reputed second and final instance of a Krakowski-Visti campaign of anti-Semitic incitement was a series of articles published in 1943, expressly commissioned by a Nazi press officer. They include the previously discussed article by Kiesilewska, Who Ruined the Hutzol Region. Given all the information we have presented above, and it is only a partial and preliminary account, it hardly seems necessary to answer the manifestly false claim that Krakowski-Visti only twice incited virulent hate for the Jews from its editorial offices in Krakow, some 60 kilometers from the gas chambers at Auschwitz. However, the 2 articles from the 1990s that have formed the basis of this claim were authored by the noted historian John Paul Himka. Himka, who also happens to be Freeland's uncle, would readily admit his views about the Ukrainian fascists have evolved considerably since the mid-1990s, when serious historical research into their activities and the Holocaust in the Ukraine was only in its initial stages. Himka has himself done much to expose the horrific crimes of Stepan Bandera, his OUNB, and the UPA, including in his recently published Ukrainian Nationalists and the Holocaust, OUN and UPA's participation in the destruction of Ukrainian Jewry, 1941 to 1944. We will have occasion to cite this work on Part 3 as we examine the activities of the Ukrainian fascists during the War of Extermination against the USSR. Over the past quarter century, Himka has had to take issue with parts of his own previous scholarly writing that served to cast the Banderites as fighter for national liberation. "I know the legend well," he wrote in a 2010 polemic, "because I helped promote it. It is not to Himka's credit that he has failed to challenge the attempt to downplay Krakowski-Visti's role and thereby cast Chomaic's granddaughter, Freeland, who continues to publicly venerate him and routinely employs UPA symbols and rituals, in a better light. But whatever Himka's political limitations and moral failings, they do not begin to explain, let alone account for, the Canadian establishment's hostility towards any serious probing of Freeland's political ancestry, nor do they account for its silence about the actions of the OUN fascists, who are celebrated by the state-sponsored UCC and by the contemporary Ukrainian far-right forces that Canadian imperialism has allied with in preparing, instigating, and now waging war in Ukraine. Our investigation demonstrates that the depression, displacement, and outright destruction of Ukraine's substantial Jewish minority was an important element in the ideology and program of both wings of the Ukrainian fascist OUN and their plans to create, in alliance with Nazi-led German imperialism, a powerful Ukrainian nation-state and capitalist ruling elite. Longer than Harry Potter. Yeah, we did it, though. We got there. We got there. As promised, we're doing the David Lynch. Glad to see that there are people doing serious work on this question. Like, we're absolutely right. We're absolutely right to have questions about Freeland. Thanks, Dan. All right, 7. I'm in with a 7, Mox. Let's go. You and me, bud. Ride or die.
Number. It's May 19.
Let's do it.
2022.
Let's do it. Ride or die. Ride or die. Ride or die.
Each ball has a number.
Ball has a number. Come
Numbers
on.
1 through 10.
We got a good array here. The 5, 2, 5, 4, 9, 3.
Swirl the numbers.
Swirl the numbers. Here we go. 7, 7, 7. Got a lot of 9s.
Number.
Got some 9s. Here we go.
Today's number is
7.
2.
2. Oddity, though. Oddity with the pickup. There you go, bud. You win the pot. Yeah, break it down. What? Yeah. All right, Eric. Eric in late with a 2. You can have it too, Eric. You can have it too, bud. I'm okay with that. Right? Not going to hold it against you. Even The Economist reporting on things. As promised, guys, I need to keep this up for myself more than anything, really. Someone put a 1 or a 2 in chat. Someone just put a 1 or a 2. Redistribute all the 2s. That's right. Redistribute the 2s of production. Somebody put a 1 or a 2 in chat. What's the 2? Someone put a 1 or a 2. Eric with a 1. That's this one. So this is classic country tune. I wrote this for all my conservative people out there. I have... Should I put that? Where should I put that? It's been such a long time since I played this. I have some concerns, you see. Hope you take them seriously. You see, I get left behind while you go off and die. I have some concerns, you see. I work 5 blocks down the street from Colleen. She sits all day, hat out on the stoop. Why is she there, hoping somebody will care, while the grocery store's throwing out soup? I have some concerns, you see. We have to face them eventually, like, why do I die if I don't comply? I have some concerns, you see. Why is there even a means test to see if we get to eat? Don't you think it's odd that you gotta get a job, working hard for men you'll never meet? I have some concerns, you see. They mean an awful lot to me. It doesn't have to be this hard. Stop putting capital in charge. I have some concerns, you see. It's got quite strange that you're still pretending that climate change won't burn out the earth. Capital destroys us all, its power structure should fall. The burning sun don't care how much you're worth. I have some concerns, you see. I hope you're listening to me. If we can't see eye to eye, could you hurry up and die? I have some concerns, you see. If we can't see eye to eye, could you hurry up and die? I have some concerns, you see. That one's kind of like a little off base for me, you know what I mean? I shouldn't say off base, but it's like classic country, you know? Like the country that they were playing, like that's the kind of shit that like you'd hear like you'd hear in like the 50s. That's the type of song that would get played in the 50s and would get radio time. People would be like, let's get Johnny Cash to play a song like that. If you guys like it, I'm glad to hear it. I always feel a little awkward playing that song, I gotta tell you. A little awkward. Because, like, I'm you guys know me, like, I'm more like, well, I shouldn't say that. I play songs like this, right? Whoa! Gotta sleep another month inside this car. The wage they pay me with don't get me very far. The chains that hold me break me down, but they don't scar. Can't even drink away my blues inside a bar. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. Another day won't help that pain inside your back. The days get harder, but it's too hard to keep track. They keep you tired before your soul opens a crack. And God don't care what monkeys think about the facts. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. So sit atop your pile of bones and bloody gold, and human sacrifice don't stop you feeling old. At least you'll die before the bomb you said explodes. We're gonna burn to death while doing what we're told. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. Yeah! Alanis Morissette vibes? I'll take it, dude. I'll take it. Alanis Morissette, like, she had the one album that was just super, super amazing. That's like fucking super kick-ass. Yeah, like, that's just it, right? Like, 2020 is dope. Like, it's super dope. I feel like if you heard 2020 and you thought to yourself, that's not a great song, then you are just a loser. Like, you're just, I get to pick you up and put you in a box labeled loser, right? Just like, loser, poop, you, right? If you don't like 2020, then you just need to shut the fuck up. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Eric. I should clip my songs and post these short videos on the channel. You're right. You are right, dude. Perfect music to pump you up before work. That's right. Get pumped up. Right? If you donate $5 to the Patreon, I will send you those songs. I'll send you that song. I like how non-poetic her lyrics are sometimes. I mean, people get really up their own ass with poetry a lot of times, right? It's hilarious. We need some rocked up, distorted guitar stuff. Yeah, that's right. Lowers volume. But it's funny because when I compare that song to I Have Some Concerns, you can see why I get a little like I Have Some Concerns, I think is the song that you would play like fifth. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the first song that you would play. It's like the fifth song that you would play. That if you came and saw me, I would probably play I Have Some Concerns like fifth. And I think people would like it. I think they would, but it wouldn't be like, yeah, it'd be more like, yeah, you know, dude, that's right, you got it. These are the reasons I drink. The reasons I'm telling everybody I'm fine, even though I'm not. Your band name, the fifth song. Yeah. Probably just stick with John. Right? Like, just be like, hey, John. That's it. Jagged Little Pill. Yeah, Jagged Little Pill was a really, really fucking good album, dude. Like, every song on it was just like super killer. It was super killer, right? Like, every... There wasn't a miss. You know what I mean? And... you know you've done really good when yeah, I Have Some Concerns a bit too introspective for an opener, for sure but I like the song because I think it achieves what it sets out to do. Do you know what I mean? Which is alienate conservatives, which I'm completely down for that. Like, I think we should be spitting on conservatives. So do I stress you out? My sweater is on backwards and inside out. And you're like, how appropriate. Alanis Morissette. Yeah. Quotable. I actually really like this picture, by the way. Like, just like analyzing this artistically, I would show you the article, but it's behind a paywall. The coming food catastrophe, right? And then they're like little skulls. It's actually really metal, right? Like, they really did a really, really good job on this one. Like, really. Just, you gotta appreciate it, right? You gotta sit there and be like, wow, they did it, right? I'm more of an Exile on Main Street guy myself. Find a bad tune on that double album. Oh, a double album, no less. Jeez Louise. Near as I can tell, what's going to start happening with the famines is that they're going to blame it on Russia, right? It's going to be like El Nino, right? Like, everything was El Nino's fault. Well, now everything is Russia's fault. Well, the war in Ukraine is really making it so that we've got to jack prices, right? The war in Ukraine is really happening. Like, and just ignore all of the evidence to the contrary, right? Like, brutal. All right, let's. Age of scarcity begins with $1.6 trillion hit to world economy. This is from Bloomberg. New fault lines are likely to outlast war and plague, leaving the global economy smaller and prices higher. No. I've reached my free article limit, you guys. No. I had it. And then it betrayed me. This moment brought to you by capitalism, right? Oh, you want something? Too bad. Anyway, moving on. Surrendering neo-Nazi Azov battalion members hailed as heroes by Ukrainian military. So, This article is a good article because it confirms the stories that were coming out previously, right? Previously, there had been reports of Nazis, of Azov battalion members surrendering, but now it's confirmed. Members of the neo-Nazi Azov battalion besieged in the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol were described Wednesday as heroes of our time by the Ukrainian military after they finally surrendered to Russian forces a day earlier. Yeah, the Ukrainian military is completely not Nazi, right? Not far-right extremists or anything like that. They just praise Nazis, right? That when Nazis surrender, they go, heroes of our time, right? Nothing creepy about that, right? Normal society, normal people. Members of the neo-Nazi, over the past 24 hours, 265 militants have laid down their arms and surrendered, including 51 seriously wounded, the Russian Defense Ministry said Wednesday. Soldiers from the notorious far-right militia have been under siege in the steel plant in the eastern city of Mariupol for nearly 3 months. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russian President Vladimir Putin had guaranteed the Ukrainian fighters would be treated in accordance with international standards. The situation remains unclear, however, because Kiev insisted that a rescue operation was underway, with President Vladimir Zelensky saying that Ukraine needs Ukrainian heroes alive. To get the boys home, the work goes on, and it takes delicacy and time, he said in a live televised address. It is not clear if he was talking about soldiers already taken to other Russian-controlled locations, or soldiers still left in the steel plant, or whether he was talking about delicate negotiations, a prisoner swap, or some type of raid that might free the members of the Azov battalion, now held by the Russians. Zelensky has had to walk a fine line when dealing with the Azov battalion, because the right-wing group has threatened frequently, including on MSNBC television in the US, that it will topple his government if he makes too many compromises with the Russians. Ukraine's armed forces said that commanders of the neo-fascists based at Azovstal had been ordered to surrender to save the lives of wounded soldiers. Measures to rescue defenders who remain on the territory as Azovstal continue, a Ukrainian government statement said. According to Ukraine, some 53 seriously wounded fighters have been transferred to a Russian-controlled medical facility, with another 211 evacuated to another town, also under Russian control. Russian claims are similar, but do not match exactly in the numbers of soldiers they say are in each group. The International Red Cross is working to register all of them as prisoners of war. Efforts were reportedly underway to negotiate prisoner swap deals. However, some on the ground in Ukraine are reportedly saying that any such agreement must only take place once it has been established that an Azov battalion member has not been involved in any of the crimes committed by Azov in the region since the 2014 Maidan coup. Good luck with that. Since the time of the coup, as many as 15,000 Russian-speaking Ukrainians in the east have been killed by Ukrainian military units, often under the command of the Azov battalion. Russian Duma Speaker Vyacheslav Volodin said Wednesday that Azov battalion members should be excluded from prisoner of war swaps, and Russian officials said Thursday that they may hold war crimes trials if the situation warrants them. I actually think that's pretty likely. I think that the Donbass region would really like that. In the west of the Ukraine, meanwhile, it was reported that between 10 and 12 Russian cruise missiles had struck a military facility in the Yavoriv district, close to the city of Lvov. The complex was thought to have housed, according to the Russians, a large shipment of US and NATO weapons, as it was previously struck in March, with Russia claiming 180 foreign mercenaries were killed. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Send as much weaponry as you want. The Russians are going to blow them up. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. NATO denied having any personnel there, insisting its forces had left Ukraine prior to the Russian invasion of February 24th. There is no way to verify whether any of the foreign mercenaries who were in Ukraine were actually in the complex when it was hit. Available reports come from Ukraine and Russia, and both governments have frequently issued propaganda rather than true reports about the actual situation on the ground, right? I think the most annoying part about talking to people about the Ukrainian conflict is that, like, they buy into Western propaganda and think that everything that the Russians are saying is completely false. And it's annoying. Like, all sides are incentivized to lie. I just don't hold it against anybody, right? Like when I pull a piece of information that comes from Russian sources out, and it's been verified, people are like, Russian propaganda, because it has like any Russians on it at all. And I'm like, but then they'll take like literally a CIA report and be like, this is a thing the CIA said that's definitely true. And like, the best thing to do is to just sort of detach from it and just be like, and not actually pick sides, and just say, let's try to find out what's actually going on, right? Because everybody's incentivized to lie, and there's just no reason to be mad about it. I just keep talking to people who get mad about it when they're like, but they're lying. They're like, no, Zelensky's the truest, most honorable person that's ever existed, a hero of our times. What? Probably not, bro. Like, probably not. Ukrainian Defense Minister Olensky Reznikov branded the recent airstrike a terrorist attack on peace and security near the EU-NATO border. Dude, you're in a war. I don't know what to tell you. Russian air raids also killed 8 people in Chernihiv this week, Ukrainian authorities said. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians also reported Wednesday that a Russian soldier pleaded guilty to war crimes in a Kiev court, the first trial since the latest stage of the war in Ukraine began in February. Vadim Shishimarin faces life in prison after he allegedly admitted shooting a 62-year-old man who was riding a bicycle near the city of Chupakhivka. According to his prosecutors, Shishimarin, who commanded a unit in the tank division, was ordered to kill the civilian and used a Kalashnikov assault rifle to do so. Moscow denies that its soldiers targeted civilians and said that it had not been informed about the hearing. The trial was adjourned and is set to continue Thursday in a larger courtroom. Also, Russia claimed that the U.S. occupying forces in Syria were training jihadists to join the fight in Ukraine. The Kremlin said that at least 500 ISIS fighters and Islamists from Central Asian countries are also set to be deployed against Russian troops in Syria. These claims could not be independently verified. Although it makes sense, right? It makes sense. The United States just training up like extremist right-wing groups, as they have always done and as they will continue to do, right? I'm very interested to see if any of those rumors about that Canadian former general was with the Azov there. I haven't seen anything about that, right? I haven't seen anything about that. So I don't, my guess is no. Like, honestly, like, why would a Canadian former general be with Azov? Like, it seems outrageous. Usually when things sound outrageous, they are. You know what I mean? Like, the Ghost of Kiev. It was like such an outrageous story that I was just like, dude, probably not. Like, when there was the report of the bombing of a Holocaust memorial, right? Right in the early days, there was stories of a bombing of a Holocaust memorial, and I was just like, probably not. Like, that sounds wrong. You know what I mean? Like, if it sounds outrageous, it probably is. You know, like, and it was so, that particular story, the bombing of the Holocaust memorial, was debunked by a man in Ukraine who walked to the Holocaust memorial, took pictures, and put them online. He was just like, it's fine. Straight up. So, like, usually stories are easier to verify than you think, and if the story isn't being verified, you should probably edge towards not true, right? Like, it's usually pretty easy to, like, the Ghost of Kiev. How easy would it have been to verify this story? Who's the pilot? Like, why would they keep the name of the pilot secret, right? Like, who's this crack pilot that's that's shooting down more fighter jets than pilots did in World War II? Like, it's like in a day, right? It's crazy. They say he really did volunteer to go there, and the Canadian Army isn't taking responsibility for him because he quit after getting caught up in that sex scandal. I don't know, dude. Sounds outrageous. Sounds like something from, like what's the name of this general? Here, let's go. Let's do it. The learning experience, right? So, Canadian general who joined Azov regime. Sure. So, Canadian officials. Okay, hold on. If I here you go. No. Trevor. Okay. Trevor Cadieux. Did Russia capture General Cadieux in Azovstal. Here we go. Okay. We got CBC, Tech ARP, which I'm just like, I don't really care about Tech ARP that much. Once task, okay, yeah. This is not about anything. Here's this bro. Here he is, sad looking guy. Let's see if they even. I don't know why they would though. Why am I Azov? Yeah, of course no. Why would they? Right? Did Russia? Okay, let's hear what this has to say. Posted by Dr. Adrian Wong. Okay. Let's take a look. Pro-Russian websites, Chinese netizens, and the Chinese 50-cent army are claiming that Russia just captured a high-ranking Canadian general. According to rumors, Lieutenant General Trevor John Cadieux was captured while he was trying to escape from the besieged Azovstal metalworks in Mariupol, Ukraine. A lot of rumors, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no evidence. Bearing in mind that it is impossible to prove that something does not exist, right? I can safely say there's no evidence the Russian forces actually captured him. In fact, the reasons why it's virtually impossible, he retired. Like, that's part of it. Like, he retired, so how does he even get there, right? He volunteered in Ukraine. Okay. Russia surrounded. While no one knows where Cadieux is right now, it would be quite impossible for him to enter Mariupol. I mean, that's just it. He'd be completely useless there. This is the thing. Yes, fact 4 is the thing that I'm looking at. Why? Why would he be there? What possible reason does this guy have to be there, right? He's a retired general of the Canadian military, for fuck's sake. Like, what possible, like, is he just having a mental break? Is he just have, like, that's what makes the story outrageous to me, right? And if it turns out to be true, if suddenly they're like CBC, then I feel like I'm looking at a guy who straight up just, like, decided to pull out a gun and walk towards a firefight that he didn't need to get involved in at all. Like, that would be my big question. Have a good one, Darius. Good to see you, bud. Yeah, as I pointed out earlier, it would be impossible for Cadieux to be present in Azovstal unless he went AWOL from the Canadian Armed Forces, entered Mariupol before March 17th, 2022. There are several ceasefires in which civilians managed to escape. He was not among them. More importantly, Basurin confirmed Russian forces did not capture him. I just am like, I'm so skeptical of this story. I can't think of a possible reason how this story could possibly be true. You know what I mean? It just sounds wild, like way outside the norm. Way outside the norm. The kind of thing that you would make like a movie about. The kind of thing that I would love to see like Wes Anderson do a movie about. Of just like a guy who's just like sitting there being like, he's like sitting beside his like mother's bed, right? And she's like dying, right? And he looks at her and he's like, "Mother, I've decided to go to war." And she goes, "Oh, Trevor, you don't need to go to war. You're about to retire." "No, Mother, I've decided it. I can't be convinced otherwise. I'm going to go to war." "Trevor, well, at least pack a lunch." And then Trevor, he's like got his gun and he's just like walking off into Ukraine, right? Going off to war, going off to war. And then the whole story is about him just like, "Well, here I am, Azov, Ukrainians. I'm here to join your war." "Well, take a seat. We're surrounded, you see." "Oh, I do. What do we work? Night shift. What day is it? We don't know." Yeah. No, it's too absurd. Too absurd for me to believe. But if you can find evidence, if you can find real evidence, like even a confirmation by like a third-party diplomatic source, then I would be like, "Oh, okay." But it's just like, what the fuck? What a weird story. Ukrainian news outlet suggests UK and US governments are primary obstacles to peace. Recent media reports indicate that the West pressured Ukraine to stop the ongoing negotiations with Russia, which led to the collapse of the talks being held in Istanbul. A recent report in the Ukrainian news outlet Ukrainska Pravda, quoting officials from the Ukrainian president's office, claimed that talks between Ukraine and Russia have stopped due to pressure exerted by UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson during his unannounced visit to Kiev on April 9th. According to the report, Johnson came to Kiev on a surprise visit, apparently to express solidarity and announce financial and military aid to Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression. However, during his meeting with Zelensky, Johnson asked him to not continue with the talks, which were ongoing in Turkey, asserting that Putin needs to be defeated. Zelensky's public position on talks with Russia shifted dramatically following this visit. Only a few days prior to the visit, Zelensky had proclaimed that there is no alternative to talks with Russia. He had declared the necessity of the talks even amidst the international outcry over the alleged mass killings in Bucha. During the last physical rounds of talks between both countries in Istanbul in late March, Russia had claimed that Ukraine was ready to consider its demand of Ukrainian neutrality. The Russians had also said that there were talks of a possible meeting between Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Russia had earlier alleged that the talks were stalled due to Western pressure. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov alleged in late April that Ukraine had taken the decision to stall the talks on the advice of American and British colleagues. Putin had announced deadlock in the talks and said that the West, instead of finding a solution to the conflict, has been aiding the war with the objective of prolonging it at the cost of the Ukrainian people. Consistent NATO backing through arms supplies have also led to the hardening of Zelensky's public stance on the talks. On Friday, he proclaimed that talks with Russia will only resume after Russian troops withdraw from Ukraine completely and return all those Ukrainians who have been evacuated to Russia. So literally, no, that's not going to happen. Russia claims to have evacuated more than 19,800 people from the Donbass republics. It also claims that Ukrainian forces tried to block the evacuation. Russia has evacuated more than 1.1 million people from Ukraine since the beginning of its special operation on February 24th, TASS reported. Russia has already announced that it will not halt its offensive for the talks, and that Ukrainian commitment of neutrality will be necessary for any meaningful talks. A proxy war. Russian allegations of a proxy war have been echoed by several anti-war groups. On March 7th, the UK-based Stop the War campaign observed an International Day of Action for Peace in Ukraine, demanding immediate resumption of talks between the parties. In a statement on Friday, the campaign's governor, Lindsay German, asserted that the British government has become an obstacle to peace in Ukraine by encouraging the continuation of the war through huge arms shipments and incendiary rhetoric. She said that the conflict in Ukraine is developing into a proxy war between Russia and NATO, which will have implications for Ukrainian people, Common Dreams reported. Similar positions have also been taken by anti-war group Code Pink in the US, which have questioned the Biden administration's funding to Ukraine and the lack of incentives for peace. It also termed the war in Ukraine a proxy war. The US and its NATO allies have expressed that the objective behind their military and financial aid to Ukraine is to see that Russia is defeated. In a video conference with Zelensky on Sunday, May 8th, the G7 countries, all NATO members except Japan, pledged coordinated sanctions against Russia. They also talked about phasing out their dependency on Russian energy and breaking all existing global links of Russian banks. In a joint statement post the meeting, the G7 countries vowed to never let Russia win the war against Ukraine and promised further military aid to it. They claimed that USD $24 billion has already been provided and pledged to Ukraine by the international community. The UK promised fresh aid of USD $1.6 billion on Saturday, taking its total aid to above $3 billion. Johnson had announced $1 billion in aids during his April 9th visit. The US alone has provided weapons worth $4 billion to Ukraine. The Biden administration is seeking an additional aid of $33 billion for Ukraine in the US Congress, of which $20 billion would be for weapons and military aid. The US and its NATO allies have already imposed various rounds of political and economic sanctions on Russia. On Sunday, the US announced additional sanctions on Russian media and banks. NATO members have promised more sanctions against Russia in future. As per a Xinhua report, instead of encouraging the two sides to overcome difficulties and keep talks going to bring about peaceful outcomes, the US and its allies have gone on to fan the flames, magnify regional conflict, and fish in troubled waters, risking the lives of millions for their own narrow interests. Apparently Malcolm Nance, Some people who were civilians trapped in Azovstal said there was a foreign general there in the tunnels under the plant. We got a real, like... So first it's the ghost of Kiev, and now it's the ghost general in the tunnels under Azovstal. Dude, that would be a wild story, man. Like, a wild story, man. Like, hold on. We're gonna take one more look at Trevor. 'Cause, like, what the fuck is that? Like, why in God's name would this guy even go there? Right? Now, everybody is just like... So he heads to Ukraine. Like, that's reported in global news. Canadian military and heads to Ukraine. So he's there. Nobody knows where, though. Uh-oh. To volunteer to help back a Russian invasion. He is now a private... he's a private citizen. Dude. Hold on. What a this is the wildest story, dude. There isn't much by way of, like, actual... There's literally just this tech ARP, which I'm like, who are these guys? I don't know who they are. Yeah. This is an old article, too, 7 days ago. So, like, so, they're saying he was captured here? Dude, nah. Until I see something, like, pretty official... Like, until I see something, like, a little bit more comprehensive, I think I'm going to put that one to bed. I think I'm happy to file that under, like, Ghost of Kiev. Like, and it's not even that important a story, really. Although, it is kind of crazy. Like, a former Canadian general going to fight the Russians and getting captured. Like, that's like a D-tier story in a war movie. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of thing that you put into a war movie as, like... Look at this guy's crazy journey through this war, right? Meanwhile, Canada bans China's Huawei ZTE from 5G wireless networks. You know why this is happening, by the way. Again, hey, I can actually read this one. I don't actually want to, though. Like... This one, to me, seems very straightforwardly for all the, like, what's the Canadian government saying about it, right? Huawei, Canadians' military leadership argued the companies pose too big a potential security risk to allow it into 5G networks. My feeling on it is actually that a big reason why Canada and the United States doesn't want Chinese technology anymore is because the technology is getting overwhelmingly superior, and they don't want regular citizens interacting with the technology anymore because the Chinese, what they're producing is just better, right? It's just better stuff, and if you want to go to war with a nation, which they do, right? If you want to destroy a nation. Well, you can't have citizens being like, but we love their shit. We love their technology. We love their stuff. And so, what do? You ban it. You ban it on some kind of bullshit, trumped up nonsense like security or whatever, right? Cool how the United States, or how the military is like, you know, banning consumer products from us because they're really concerned about our security. But climate change isn't a national security issue, guys. Forget about it. Forget about it. Canadians more sensitive to stress than before the pandemic. No shit. Like, we just went through a traumatic experience where the government and corporations explicitly told us that we would just die. Yeah, we're more sensitive to stress, for sure. Like, the literal apparatus that exists in order to protect us basically just said, keep working, shut up. Like, what do you think it's going to do with other crises that are definitely coming? Just shut up, keep working. Yeah, or Taiwan. Gotta worry about Taiwan. Yeah, exactly. Doug Ford, PC, still favored to win, majority, but support softening. Polls conducted mostly before Monday's debate continue to show a consistent and sizable lead for Doug Ford's progressive conservatives over Del Duca's liberals and the New Democrats under Andrea Horwath. However, some polls suggest PC support could be softening. Nevertheless, the PCs are still favored to win another majority government, and the role of official opposition is a toss-up between the Liberals and the NDP. Unless something really magical happens over these next few weeks, because like, when is the election's soon, right? 2 weeks, I think. When is the Ontario election? You can tell how much I give a shit about this. Oh yeah, 2011. That's exactly what I meant to type. Yeah, June 2nd. I should have just said June 2nd. You guys would have believed me. I knew it was June 2nd. So June 2nd, so literally like, well, 2 weeks. 2 weeks on the dot, in fact. 2 weeks to the day. So unless something genuinely and seriously occurs, looks like we're going for another Doug Ford election. I mean, in probably the most embarrassing moment in Ontario's history. Like, I think you got to go back to literally like a time when we were actively purging and genociding First Nations people to see a more fucking fucked up period than this. Like, Doug Ford is a disaster for literally everybody, even the people who are voting for him. Like, I don't understand. Like, yeah, yippee, right? Yippee, yeah. I think at best what we could hope for at this point is a minority government, that's possible. Like, his majority is fairly, like, it's 63 seats to majority. He's sitting at 70 seats projected. And every single time I look at this, it's declining. Like, it used to be 75, and then it's 73, and now it's 70, and it's declining, right? So I would not mind a minority situation. That would be great. It'd be really wonderful to see the NDP and the Liberals shellac fucking Doug Ford. Anyway. And case in point, right? Ford's trying to position himself as like a for the workers kind of person. This is from Press Progress. Anti-union lobby group has received millions of dollars from Doug Ford's government since 2021. Doug Ford claims he's working for workers, while millions of dollars flow to lobbyists targeting skilled trade unions. Like, for the workers, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, like, we are so thick. Like, we're so thick. Like, you can make this statement that the Liberals are useless, but like, they're heads and shoulders, like, in terms of who you actually want running your fucking province, they're heads and shoulders above it. Like, this guy's literally just like a total disaster. Oh, what's the actual name of the organization? Doug Ford's blah blah blah, various times, yep, working quota. Both have with Merit Ontario, bibbity bobbity. You did it, bud. You did it. Merit Ontario. So Merit Canada, right? Like, we are just a bunch of fucking dopes, eh? Like, come on. MSNBC, there are very real possibilities that we are going to see critical food shortages for potentially billions of people. It's a terrifying story. Capitalism really working out. I just love this picture, dude. And if so, what's up with the four of these trade unions backing the Ford PCs? Because here's what's happening, dude. Like, it's people want to be on the right side of the project of prosperity. That what Doug Ford is doing is he knows that what he's done is he's gutted the public sector, right? He knows that he's like causing problems for nurses and teachers and doctors, right? He knows that that's what he's doing, and lawyers, right? He knows that's what he's doing. But he still needs to galvanize public support, right? So what's he doing? He's creating a make work project, right? Like, which is this highway, and he's roping in enough union support and enough people to get on this project so that there'll be good jobs, and we're creating jobs, and we're doing things and spreading and a lot of fucking dopey, kind of high school dropout types are like, oh yeah, I'll just go work this job. You should just get a job, right? And that's what's cutting it. That's what's doing it. Walter Paymick, Merit Canada, was caught in the Ashley Madison scandal a few years back. Oh, yeah, okay. Honestly, dude, like, I don't care about sex scandals. Like, I really don't. The thing that I find funny about sex scandals is that people are like, gasp. Like, that's my feeling. Like, this just in. Men like having sex with beautiful women. who aren't their wives. Yeah. Like, to me, the scandal is that we think this is a scandal. Like, to me, the scandal is like, I don't know, get over it. You know? Like, that's my position. Like, I just am like, yeah, thanks, Rob. The real scandal is that no one is having sex. That's right. That's right. We're also fucking pent up and terrified. And then also, like, our Puritan values. And, like, just, the whole thing is as dumb as it can be. And thanks to income inequality now, sex is basically a financial transaction. Even if you're getting into a relationship and doing that kind of thing, right? Like, forget about prostitution, forget about OnlyFans, forget about all of that. Like, literally, the reason why people are getting together is for economic reasons. That's what's happening in today's society, right? Yeah, everyone has had a sex scandal. I just, like, it doesn't interest me. I don't care. Like, I don't. Like, I understand that there are people who do, right? I understand, but there's people who care about fucking Kim Kardashian and Johnny Depp's stupid trial and all this. I just don't care. I just am literally like, yeah, what's the story? Like, oh, a man had sex with a woman who wasn't his wife. Don't care. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that, bud. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, send around. Like the Bill Clinton sex scandal thing. Even when I was like a kid, I was like, you're fucking telling me that Hillary Clinton doesn't know? You're telling me that Hillary Clinton was unaware that Bill Clinton was doing this? Obviously she knew. Like, obviously she knew. And she's probably in on it. Like, I just wish we would drop this, like, absolutely, like, goodness me, oh my goodness me, oh my god, can you believe that a man wanted to use his position of power in order to have sex with beautiful women who weren't his wives? Yes, of course I can believe that. Like, I just am like, the only thing that I'm like, yeah, I understand why that's not good, is if he's doing it behind his wife's back. But really, I bet most of the time these guys are like, hey, honey, I'm going to go have sex with a woman. Go have sex with a dude, okay? And she's probably like, okay, honey, see you later, right? And they just don't tell people that because everybody's walking around being like, goodness me, they signed a document that said that they were in love with each other forever and forever. It just, to me, it's like it's just a continued assertion, and it just verifies again and again the kind of overt childishness of our society. That, like, we're sitting here being like, sex is weird and gross, except if a man and a woman get married. And then it's totally okay, as long as they only have sex with each other. And if they want to have sex with other people who aren't the people that they married, then it's weird and gross again. It's like, it's just children shit. It's just weird. Like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Like, what the fuck are you even talking about? And so I just don't care. So-and-so got caught in a sex scandal. Good for him for getting laid. I don't know. Like, it just, and like, I would be, the only sex scandal I would actually be, like, weirded out by, would be, like, an abuse scandal. You know what I mean? Like, if the story wasn't just, this guy had sex with a prostitute. I mean, okay. Like, well, I don't care. This guy beat up a prostitute. Then I'd be like, oh, go get fucked. Like, get fucked. Like, absolutely get fucked now. Like, I draw the line at that kind of shit for sure. But, like, anyway, I feel like I'm just going around in a circle. Like, I read an article today where a sex worker decided to hunt down Facebook admin to sleep with them so that she could have her account unblocked. That's proactive. That's proactive right there. That's going out into the world and solving your problems, right? That lady bootstrapped herself, right? She stood up straight with her shoulders back, right? She found the power within herself. She rode the Chaos Dragon right down that man's pants and got exactly what she wanted. Conservative values. Fucking absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Off you go. If you guys can't figure it out, I'm pro-sex. Like, I think that sex workers and prostitutes should be protected, should be considered just another form of labor. We should do everything we can to make sure that they're safe and everything's great for them, because the violence that's perpetrated against them from the society, in my view, is completely illegitimate and totally bullshit. I think that everyone should have sex with everyone all of the time. I think it's weird that I can play a video game, right? Where, like, go watch video on YouTube, completely uncensored, totally fine. YouTube doesn't give a shit at all, right? Type in Mortal Kombat 11 into YouTube. You are going to see the most visceral, grotesque, outrageous, absurd violence you will ever see anywhere. These guys have gone out of their way to show in meticulous detail, the types of ways that human beings can die, right? Things that are so overwhelmingly grotesque that if you saw them in real life, you would, like, vomit on the spot. But if a person in the background, if there was a woman in the background who is topless, oh, it'd be a huge scandal. Oh, it's the scandal of our times. Oh my God, a video game and there's boobs in it. Oh no! Won't someone please think of the children? Well, literally, you can grab a guy's jaw and pull it off his face and then jam it into his eyeball and then loop it around to pop the other eyeball out and then pin him to the ground and crush his head with your boot. Normal. That's a normal thing that everyone is fine seeing. Totally normal thing to spread into the society. Boobs? Oh! Like, are you starting to get it? Are you starting to get how backwards our society is? Are you starting to get how, like, absolutely outrageously, egregiously backwards we are as a people? That when it comes to showing grotesque acts of overt extreme violence, we're just like, whatever. But when it comes to, like, enjoying sexuality or just allowing sexuality to exist, no, you're objectifying and that's terrible. Oh, if you acknowledge that you enjoy seeing naked people, you're a pervert, right? Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, I actually think it's far more perverse to enjoy seeing people get eviscerated, right? Like, so it's fine if you see someone get disemboweled, right? If you enjoy watching people get disemboweled, that's fine. But if you enjoy sex, you're a pervert, right? That's the nature of our society. That's what we're at. That's who we are. It's fucking dumb. It's dumb as shit. Like, oh no. Ugh. Yeah, the gross double standards that society has no problem for men to be topless. Like, I just am like, I just wish we'd grow up. I just wish we'd grow up. That's all. I just wish we'd grow up. Latin America has had massive protests in the last 10 years, and now left-wing governments are coming to power. Yep. It's happening in South America, man. It's happening in South America. Like, I'm expecting, once Brazil goes left again, and all indications are showing that it's the case, that it's going to be Lula again. Sorry, guys, 1 second. Milo, leave it alone, okay? That's good. He's, like, staring right at his Kong, being like, I could have more peanut butter. More peanut butter, Jonathan. And I'm just like, dude, you literally just ate all the peanut butter in the world. Yeah, dude, I hope it happens. I hope it happens. We all know what's going to happen, right? The United States is going to start bombing the shit out of them, right? We all know. Like, they're going to go in there and just coup governments and do that shit, because that's what they do. That's how the United States is, right? It's not going to just allow leftists to take hold. They're just going to go in with death squads again and just fucking blow the place up like they always do, right? Like, If Latin America is actually allowed to federate in any kind of meaningful way and is allowed to actually organize itself, then we know that that American imperialism is over. Like, it's the truth. Yeah, if that happens, some leaders are going to be disappeared. Yeah, exactly, Watson. That's exactly the story. All right, let's do the rapid fire. Polyev faces backlash for comments on Jordan Peterson podcast. The dude, I'm a believer in using simple Anglo-Saxon words. Like, Anglo-Saxon, come on, dude. Like, nobody says Anglo-Saxon unless they're doing a racist dog whistle. Right? Come on. Come on. Who's walking around being like, I use simple Anglo-Saxon words? Wink. Like, come on, bro. We all know what he's doing. Again, this goes into, like, the I wish we would grow up category. Because the amount of times people are like, well, what's wrong with saying I'm a believer in Anglo-Saxon words? There's nothing wrong with that. The amount of times I encounter that shit, like, shut the fuck up. Like, that's some childish baby shit. Like, the only reason to say this is to look at your neo-Nazi followers and your fucking white supremacist audience and go, that's the only reason you're using that word. I'm like, yeah, and you got, like, when far-right U.S. Republicans, including Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, were connected to a leaked document for an America First pledge to return to Anglo-Saxon political traditions, right? Like, come on. What was the other one? Oh, well. Skippy's going to be the next prime minister anyway, so it doesn't fucking matter. We already did that. Jeff Bezos increases his bet on the single-family housing market. Yeah, the reason why the housing market and the houses are so much is because of immigrants. That's why. It's got nothing to do with Jeff Bezos buying up houses. Fucking dumbasses. Like, fucking dumbasses. Crypto White Supremacy. Good to see you, Loaf. Just thinking about you today, bud. Never mind that the Old English is so different from what we speak, it might as well be a completely different language. We couldn't understand Anglo-Saxons even if they lived today, yeah. Is Skippy going to go? Skippy has condemned the Great Replacement theory. So he has at least maintained a larger level of intellectual credibility. Like, do I have that in front of me? Guaranteed 2 nurses. I saw it and I thought that I should bring it up, but I think I didn't make it. I did see that Skippy decided he actually did condemn the Great Replacement theory directly. So it's something. Yes, the Ukraine war could have been prevented. Yeah, and we fucking know, right? In an interview with CBC News, Rosemary Barton last Sunday, Larissa Galids, who returned to the Ukrainian capital of Kiev this month, said the Canadian embassy was evacuated ahead of the invasion. I don't think there was anyone who could stop Putin doing what Putin did. Of course, you could completely have stopped it. What do they say? I'm not going to read this whole thing. Yeah. Canada and its allies escalated the conflict instead of pushing for a diplomatic solution, and regards NATO's action as a major factor is stoking the danger of war. Like, of course the war in Ukraine could have been prevented. It would have been really easy, right? You literally could have just talked to Russia, been like, okay, Russia, we're going to make sure that Ukraine is neutral. How about we don't fund radical far-right groups in Ukraine, right? It would have been easy to do. Disavowed himself of the Great Replacement theory, but likes Anglo-Saxon lingo. Got it. Yeah. Like, great. Look, all conservatives straddle this line, okay? That all political parties are groups of different, are coalitions, right? And the coalition that exists within conservatives is corporate power, right? That's one coalition that exists. Then you do have, like, small businesses, right? And small business owners, so like the petty bourgeoisie, right? Those guys are another part of it. And then you literally have, like, active neo-Nazi groups, right? That and just straight up the racists and all this kind of stuff. And the racists and the neo-Nazis know they know what the game is, right? They understand the game. They're not sitting there being like, why isn't Pierre doing the Nazi salute? I don't understand. Like, they get it. They know that the goal is to get elected, to win at any cost, right? Like, the goal is to win. Just win, right? And they know that they're still going to the conservative conferences. They haven't been chased out of Conservative Party. They know that there's a line, and they know that if you cross that line, you've got to be reprimanded, right? That's why when you take a look at what happened to Sloan, Derek Sloan, there was sort of a general like grumbling in the caucus, but everybody understood. Sloan crossed lines. Right? He made his overt white supremacy too obvious, right? He like, they know that the populace is not a fan of this. They know that huge sections of the populace are constantly leering at them and constantly looking at them. And so, you know, when they do their Nazi salutes and everything, they know they've got to do it in private. Like, they know. And so Skippy standing up and saying, no, I'm against the Great Replacement theory. All of the Nazis in his party go, they all go, yeah, wink, we understand, absolutely, right? And then he turns around and says Anglo-Saxon, and they're like, we get it. Get elected, dude. Get elected, right? They know. They know. Like, they're not sitting there being like, he said no to the Great Replacement theory. Like, they know, like, they've got to keep other sections of their own party, and then also, like, the working class citizens and the rest of Canada happy too. It's the same reason why conservatives won't actually crack open the abortion issue, even though there's a huge Christian part of their coalition, right? That Christians play a huge part of the coalition, the Christian churches, right? And the Christian churches are constantly pushing in the Conservative Party to get rid of abortion and to take on abortion. But they understand why it doesn't happen, right? Because they know that if they actually pushed on it, they would never be elected, right? And the goal is to win. So I wonder if Skippy is going there because of the PPC is pushing some of the base away from the party. For sure, he's if the Conservatives could get the PCs back into their caucus, they would have a majority government right now. Like, really. It is the case, but it's such a tough situation for them, because if they tip the hand too much and make it obvious that they're just going to do what the PPC wants to do, which is destroy the civil society, then huge sections of their base will leave, right? Like, the Conservatives, like, it's herding cats. It's herding cats constantly. Right? I've talked to my brother enough to know that, like, doing politics is herding cats. You're constantly trying to pull people in and trying to get things straightened and trying to get things going, all this kind of stuff. And sometimes you'll make a statement or a concession to this group that this group hates, right? And then you'll try to smooth things over with this group, but then this group hates it. And so it's like a constant, like, in up. Bread Bunny, how you doing? Hi, John, I'm back. I'm happy you're back. I'm happy to be back, too. I missed you while you were gone. I've been back for a little while, but it's good to see you. I'm happy to report this has been the best week ever for me in every way. Oh, my God, Bread Bunny, you've got to tell me. You got to tell me. Let's celebrate together. Celebrate good times. Let's all... Oh, man, I'm hyped. I'm hyped. This is the news that I've been waiting for, Bread Bunny. What is the good news that has been happening in your life? I want to try to catch a piece of it. Hey, you. See, even Milo's getting excited. Isn't that right? All right. We are waiting with bated breath to hear what Bread Bunny is going to report. I've got a little pug, puggy little dance. Milo's a cute little dog with a tiny face like a frog. He smells just like peanut butter, and I love him like no other. Milo Pants, Milo Pants. He's a good, good dog. Milo Pants, Milo Pants. Back to the floor with you. That was a fun little pug moment brought to you by Milo. Thanks, Milo. Thanks for being here, dude. Thanks for being here. All right. Well, while Bread Bunny writes her dissertation, or their dissertation, I should say. So, to continue a story I've been reporting on, a police chief in the UK said police should use their discretion when it comes to people stealing to alleviate poverty, right? Kit Malthouse, his response, don't let people off if they steal food in desperation. A policing minister, Kit Malthouse, has disrupted the suggestion of the police inspector of the constabulary, Andy Cook, and the cost of living crisis will trigger an increase in crime, branding it old-fashioned thinking. Like, straight up. Had 2 wonderful dates with literally the woman of my dreams, and also won a 1.5-year fight with the government where I was compensated a fair amount of money at a perfect timing since I have to move. Ah, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, right? That's wonderful, dude. Oh, man. Honestly, like, just going on dates generally is really good. I'm glad that these dates went well, dude. I'm glad that things are working out. Also, winning a 2.5 fight with the government? Yeah, get fucked, government. You suck. No, don't send photos. Don't get creepy about it, Watson. There's plenty of pictures of women on the internet, Watson. I'm glad, dude. I'm really happy to hear you, man. And moving is exciting, right? Hopefully that's going to be a good move for you. Inflation could put more Canadians at risk of going hungry. No shit. No fucking shit. Wet Sweat and Family confronts RCMP invasion. Actually, really, literally, Wet Sweat and Family comes out, and there's this, this moment here.
Your generation can't live here. They're in a long line of cops.
And it is she, her, by the way? Perfect. Perfect.
That's what their badge means.
Bread Bunny, dating women of her dreams. Gonna have a real good time. It's exciting, man. I'm excited for you. Love.
They volunteer every
Yes. Young love, right? You know, it's just like, I think about that from time to time, you know? Like, I got out of a relationship where and it's like, I was in a relationship with a woman for 10 years, and she came to understand and realize after about 10 years that she was actually a lesbian. And so that put an end to our romantic relationship. But, like, I'm not, like, offended by it, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, like, insulted by her. And so she's still, like, a good friend of mine. Which I think other people look at and are like, that's weird. And I'm like, is it though? Like, is it? Like, we've got a great relationship. We're just not like sexual partners anymore. Right? And I still like her. You know what I mean? And so I still see her from time to time. We still go on walks and stuff. We still have a good time together. But it does sort of like, you know, I hear stories like yours. And it just makes me think like, you know, am I ever going to love again? Am I ever going to get into that kind of relationship again? Like, I think about where I'm at right now and, like, doing this podcast and working for Capital. And, like, the idea of, like, fitting a woman into my life right now is just, like... But then, of course, the heart is what the heart is, right? And if I were to find somebody who made my heart skip a beat and find the person who could tolerate my presence. I think part of the issue is that I'm kind of a difficult person to be with, really. Like, you guys experience me through the internet, right? Through the screen here, right? You experience me as this kind of raving lunatic, right, over the internet. But like, living with me, right, living with the kind of hard principled stances that I take, I'm amazed that the person I was with did so in the first place, honestly. Oh, well, thank you, Bread Bunny. That's very kind of you to say. That's very kind of you to say. Anyway. And of course, Loaf talking about welding again. You, dude. I feel like I just need to get, like if any woman wanted to get Loaf on side, it would just be like, oh no, it's not you, Loaf. It's, who was it? Yeah, it was, there is somebody who just keeps bringing up welding women. I don't remember, though. Oh, well. China has successfully killed the Wither, and now has the resources necessary to activate a beacon. What the fuck are you talking about, bro? That sounds like some sci-fi shit right there. What are you talking about, Mocked? Hold on. On the note of positive news, I've lined up a new coaching job finally. I had to move away from my last position to go to school, so pretty stoked about that. Very nice. Wither is Minecraft stuff. What? John, you can learn to weld too and get chicks. Welders get chicks. That's my position on that. The Geico, 15 minutes could save you $15 or more on car insurance. Mocked, what's happening over there, bud? What's happening, Mocked? What's happening? Are you having like I feel like you're having a little like corporate break going on there. Like something weird's happening in Mocked World right now, dude. That's hilarious. The Wither is from Minecraft. It's a boss. Well, good. I'm glad that China has defeated it and is now successfully placed a beacon. Excellent. And then looks like Mocked has been like, do they pay you for that, Mocked? Do you have like a deal with Geico? That's hilarious, bud. Wow, this stream, we really lost the thread of this stream, eh? I'm just so happy that things are working out for you guys. Let me talk, like, what's something in my life that's going well right now? I get really down on myself because I like to read out loud, as you guys know, right? On the channel, I do a lot of it. So I also audition to do audiobooks, right? I've been doing audiobooks through a website, and it has actually paid out on several occasions already. But I get really down on myself about it, you know? I get really like, about it. And when I get like that, I just don't do the work. And, but it's so dumb because I like literally, like yesterday, I just did 6 auditions, right? And I already have another job. And it's like, oh, okay. So like, it's just, I don't know why I get down on myself like this. I don't know why I don't believe in myself more. I don't know why I get into a position where I think like this. And I don't know. I think I just get overwhelmed by all of this, right? And I start to get like kind of nihilistic about what it is to, like, why am I even doing this work? And why am I even doing this? Did the audition include German and Ukrainian names? How dare you, Watson? How dare you, sir? How dare you? Just so you know, right? If I were to do an audition that included German and Ukrainian names, I would find out what those names are in advance, and I would nail them. I would nail them, right? Doing cold, like especially German. German's worse than Ukrainian, because like Ukrainian is always like Yagaba Japaduskaski. It's always what it is. But German is like Frankenstein. There's a lot of that going on in German. I hope Mocked is on the other side of this being like But the truth is that I just need to keep having faith in myself, and I just need to keep doing the work, right? Yeah. How dare you butcher my beautiful language? I knew it. I knew it, dude. I knew it. Yeah, Krakiv ish tiff ish tiff. You're right, dude. No, you're totally fucking right. Cold reading those names is tough. It's tough. Thank you all for coming along. John's German pronunciation is beautiful. Thank you for lying for me, Loaf. I appreciate that. You're all very sweet. You're all very sweet. I feel like Bread Bunny coming in with her news is just putting like a layer of sweetness. Like everything has become lighter somehow. That's nice, man. It is nice. Love is in the air. Do, 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 do. Some millennials and Gen Z have hit an apocalyptic phase in which they don't see the point in saving for the future. No fucking shit. Like, no fucking shit, you dumbasses. Like, ugh. Like, just look at the fucking, like, between 2 recessions, a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, and climate crisis, yet another new war, America's youngest adults have already experienced a lot of trauma. I can't imagine why people are just being like, yep, this is stupid. Like, you don't need to write, like, a big, long fucking article about it. Yeah, I wanted to use my savings to have a life experience, Narang told the Times. Visiting home made me see how much of my life I had missed. Yeah, like, I just fuck off with all this, right? Like, I don't understand why we're doing any of this. Why do we go to work? Like, for what? To what end? For what purpose? We gotta build like, fucking, we're here in Ontario, we're literally going to elect a government whose idea is let's build a pointless highway. That's literally their idea. Like, not face the climate crisis, not face any of this kind of shit. Literally, let's tear up a bunch of farmland, let's pollute a whole bunch of shit so that the worst possible thing that we have, which is cars, can save a tiny shredding little bit of time on the commute. It's so fucking stupid. And the people who are voting for it are so fucking stupid. Like, why would anyone participate in this? It's so dumb. It's so fucking dumb. Yeah, another recession on the way. Yeah, yippee, good times, right? Meanwhile, the capitalists are making more money than ever, right? Like, my retirement plan is quick picks. Consume. Yeah, my retirement plan is to die in the water wars. That's my retirement plan. I don't fucking know, dude. Like, fuck these guys. Fuck these goddamn neo-Nazis, man. Just, yeah. Oh, yeah, and of course, 2 nurses injured while protesting Doug Ford outside Ontario leadership debate venue. Right? Like, literally the cops are beating up nurses. Like, the lines can't be clearer, right? The cops are voting for Ford, the nurses are voting for someone else. Like, a guaranteed basic income could end poverty, so why isn't it happening? And then the article proceeds to not actually tackle the question, why isn't it happening? Why isn't it happening? Why do you think? Like, what the fuck? Why do you think it isn't happening, you dumbass? It's not happening because the suffering is the point. That's why it's not happening. Oh yeah, this is one of these things that is just brewing now. The Fifth Circuit just dismantled the SEC's power to enforce securities law. This decision is beyond radical. It's nihilistic. So literally, just like, once the next collapse happens, the SEC doesn't have the power to enforce securities law. Straight up. It's just been abolished. Right? So literally, if investors, or if you want to scam investors, do it. Always, 100% of the time. If you're in America and you have the opportunity to scam investors out of their money, do it. The SEC doesn't have the power to enforce securities law anymore. Like, one of the reasons why I think this is happening, by the way, is because people are beginning to create a fairly credible argument that things like Bitcoin are actually securities, right? Like, when you actually look at what Bitcoin is, and you try to take a look at it in terms of like what it is in terms of law, it's a security, right? Like, you are saying, give me your dollars, and in exchange, I will give you access to this Bitcoin or a security, right? And of course, that opens up, that interpretation of Bitcoin opens up a whole slew of problems for people, right? Like, if Bitcoin is actually regulated as a security, well, then there goes the deregulation argument, right? No, it's a security, right? And then that means that they're going to have to actually provide security for Bitcoin, which the whole thing is a Ponzi scheme, right? It's not actually it doesn't actually exist beyond any kind of like it exists to sucker people. That's what it's for, right? It's a Ponzi scheme, and so to ensure that the people who are involved in these schemes don't actually face any punishment after they collapse, well, deregulate the securities. Pump and dump time, you bet. I'm sure this will have no consequences whatsoever. I'm sure the market will correct itself, right? Oh yeah, I should have reported this. Talk about burying the lead. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney resigning as UCP leader despite narrow win in leadership review. This guy should resign. Like, like, I don't understand why people don't look at this guy and go, oh, conservatives are just evil. Like, they're just a repugnant group of total fucking evil losers. But I don't know why people don't do that to Doug Ford. So the reality is that the NDP are going to trounce the Conservatives in Alberta next election, and they're going to do so because Kenny's incompetent. Like, he's not only like, he's an ideologue of the worst stripe. Like, he actually thinks that impoverishing children is good. Like, that's who this man is. So there's a reason why the NDP are going to win next election. Yeah, cryptos and NFT are the ultimate in fictitious capital. There was this guy called Karl Marx who talked about this kind of stuff. Scam people, make fake rules to calm the angry masses. Quietly repeal the rules, rinse, wash, repeat. Yep. Looks like the Fash have openly taken over the UCP. I mean, they always were. Like, I don't understand. Like, the UCP is like as gross an organization that has ever existed, in my view. Like, just bleh, bleh, I don't even know. All right. All that's left are the things I wanted. To remind everybody, right, really great video. Texas Bentley and Fergie Chambers report from the Donbass front lines. It's so difficult to get news out of Donbass now, right? It's so difficult to find links and to find people who are actually reporting on it, honestly. So when I do find it, I try to share it around as much as I can, right? I'm glad you guys are here, man. I'm glad that I've had this great opportunity to spread an alternative narrative, you know? Like, the reason why I wanted to, the reason I always wanted to do this YouTube channel is because I feel like I've always felt like there is a narrative that exists that I don't hear. I never hear actually get said or talked about. I never hear people trying to provide an alternative viewpoint, right? Like, all of our news is essentially tribal right now, right? Everything is just tribal, and everybody is separated into their own kind of little categories, and no one is actually interested in attempting to find out what the truth is, right? And if you say that, oh, I'm trying to find out the truth, then the tribalists basically say, oh, so you're one of these QAnon nuts, right? Because if you're not rooted in tribalism anymore, if you're operating from another principle, right? A principle of we should find out what the truth is, we should find out what actually happened, right? Well, then that means you're not on side. It means you're not on the team, right? Yeah, Kenny staying in charge of UCP was probably Alberta's only chance to swing NDP this year, which would help a lot of people. I think people are going to swing NDP anyway. Like the reason why they get rid of Kenny in the UCP is because they know he can't win against Notley, right? Like, enough power has swung towards the NDP. So this in my view is more desperation than anything. Like, I think the NDP do win, right? Like, I mean, maybe not. We'll see. Maybe the Conservatives will put in a guy who's just like the golden boy, right? Completely possible. But like, from what I've seen from the UPC or the UCP, yeah. No, I'm not saying the NDP is like the greatest party that ever lived. Like, I'm not standing here being like the NDP will bring in peace and prosperity and everything. Like, yeah, they're like another capitalist party, right? So, but I mean, like, at this stage in the game, I would be happy to see the populace even go, hey, wait a minute. These guys don't care about anyone but themselves. We should vote for someone who pretends to care. Like, that's where I'm at with this populace. Like, this populace is so, like, embarrassing. Embarrassing is the word. Like, one of the things that's been really helping me recently, like, I listen to, like, George Carlin, or even, like, Buddhists, like, even these guys, right? That it's about detachment. It's about not really staking a claim in it, right? It's not like, when I look at like the coming food catastrophe, I don't go, oh no, and then have like a cry about it. Although I understand why people do. Because I'm more and more, especially as I get older, I'm more and more taking the approach that like, I'm not really a part of this anymore, you know? Like, I'm trying to view it as being above it, as looking down at it, as dispassionately as I can, and like the lamenting for the future of humanity, I'm kind of over it, because it's like, humans are kind of embarrassing, you know? Like, when you look at like dogs, right? When you look at dogs, right? You're not really embarrassed about dogs. And you can never be embarrassed about dogs, because dogs are just soft and fluffy and lovely. All they want to do is chill out. And then when they're scary, they're scary. Right? Terrifying. Terrifying. Okay, we'll put it back down. Terrifying. Right? I picked him up when he didn't want to be picked up, so he made a big scene. Didn't you just make a big scene? I know that someday someone, like 20 years from now, someone is going to do like a clipping of all the times I pick Milo up and he does that. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. And I mean, yeah, prepare for it, right? Prepare for it. But like, like looking at other species, like dolphins or octopi, right? You're never embarrassed about them, right? Because they don't pretend to be something they're not, right? And you can make the argument that it's because they lack that capacity, but like, they just exist in the world and they're just happy to be here and they're just chilling out. They're just like, an octopus is just like, I'm an octopus. Yeah, got a fish, eat the fish, right? Float about. Dolphins are just like, hey, we're fucking dolphins. You want to be dolphins? Let's float around and be fucking dolphins and shit, right? And humans pretend to be something that they're not. That's the thing that makes it so embarrassing, right? That humans walk around pretending like they're in control of the place, pretending like they're great, pretending like they're even interested in being great, when really, like, the people we keep electing to be our leaders are just like the scummiest, most degenerate losers in the society, right? Like a guy like Doug Ford, like his entire trajectory was born to a millionaire, right? Born to a millionaire. Good to see you, Victini. Born to a millionaire who himself was a politician, took his daddy's money and daddy's political connections and just continued on as a hereditary wealth owner, dropped out of college, sold hash, beats his wife, and then ran for office and got it. That's his whole trajectory. Like, he's as big a loser as you can find in the society, right? Like you got to kind of look around a lot to find a bigger loser, right? Just completely like callously disconnected from everybody around him. Doesn't give a fuck about anybody, and start growing your own food. That's exactly right. Because these losers have completely abandoned us, right? They have no vision. They have no idea. They don't listen to experts. They don't care what anyone thinks. The only thing that Doug Ford cares about is living in his mansion and getting his Timmies. That's literally all he cares about. That he views himself like a mob boss. That's all, right? Do we have confirmation that Ford is a wife beater? I think so. Did Doug Ford beat his wife? Rob Ford police investigation. Oh, is this a Rob Ford story? Hold on. Okay, I rescind it. I think this may have been a Rob Ford story. Just look at these fucking idiots. I don't know what to tell you, man. Just fucking like... I helped Food Not Bombs plant a community garden this last weekend. Wonderful. It's largely an anarchist group, but they do good stuff on the ground. Yes, and that's what really matters. That's what really matters. Like, we don't need to have confirmation. Just say it anyway. Now, Generation Y me. We here at the Canadian Commie stake our reputation on accuracy in reporting. And if we are inaccurate in our reporting, we have to rescind our statements. Even for a drug-dealing loser like Doug Ford. We don't do it for him. We do it for ourselves. I mean, one would think in this time of reactionary postmodernism and identity reductionism, this would be played up more. No, Watson, we live in a post-truth world. We live in a post-truth world. No, it doesn't matter what's true or false to most people. It only matters to us. Right? Yeah, that's right. John and the Puck. When you get born into money and privilege, your reflection in the world is a shining star. Nannies and parents tell you so all the time. When you have privilege, you see your privilege over others. Absolutely, Victini. This is absolutely the truth. Silverlight. Good to see you, by the way. I would like to take this opportunity to rescind everything I've ever said before it can be used against me. Good strategy. Good strategy. You know what? Me too. Everything I've ever said from this point, from backwards, forget about it. Moving forward, new story. No, not true. False. Fake news. All right, guys. We've reached 9 o'clock. Just as a reminder, no longer doing the Friday night show, and also the Monday night show is going to be late because I picked up a shift on Monday, and so I'm going to be coming in late. Yeah, bash the fash. That's right. Bash the fash. All right, guys. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class is spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it, and you'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.